then they found themselves in a place where they needed a battle rifle. They needed a higher power, more capable infantry rifle. So that brought about what I would pinpoint on where battle rifle came from.
There's really two reasons as for why you're choosing a battle rifle, right? You're choosing a battle rifle for range, and you're choosing a battle rifle for penetration.
What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic, Jim to my right, Mr. Adam Maxwell, and Mr. Alexander Lewis across from us. Gentlemen, the podcast ring is packed today. We have a bit of a battle royale going on, a battle rifle royale. And Jim, we got just the guys to talk about this topic with us today.
He came up with that 10 seconds ago?
Yeah.
I got to give you credit where it's due.
I appreciate that. Guys, we've had this on the books for a while. I've been pumped about this for a while. We're going to talk about battle rifles, maybe where they've been, where they are today. If you're watching on YouTube, you can maybe see a little bit about where they are today, maybe where we're going, and then contrast it with, you can't have this conversation without contrasting it with your assault rifle. And we can use that word in the context that we're talking about today. That is the purpose of that rifle, and it's okay to say. We're giving permission people to say that now, I think, these days.
Yeah, in a military context, it's a term. It's a term like light machine gun or heavy machine gun or mortar, cruise. It's a category of weapons in a military arsenal.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's the best way to contrast against what a battle rifle is.
Right.
Cool.
Right. I like it. Guys, maybe we should start here. What is the definition of a battle rifle? What makes it different?
So my definition for what we brought today and what we're discussing would be a full-size rifle cartridge. So for this discussion, we'd be talking about things like 308 Winchester / 7.62, NATO. We're going to be talking about 6.8, and we're going to be talking about 6.5 Creedmoor. So something that would traditionally, fill the length of a Remington 700 short action, right? We're going to contrast that against what would be classic weight assault rifles. So 5.56. 7.62 by 39 would be the comparison. So with a battle rifle, everything's going to be upscaled. We're talking bigger magazines, bigger receivers, bigger bolts. Just everything gets larger versus you have a much more nimble and compact assault rifle category. So each has their merits, each has advantages and disadvantages, and it's a honest conversation about what fits the needs of an end user and their given use case.
Gotcha. From a historic perspective, and maybe you could say, 1776, right? But in your opinion, what is, and maybe within somewhat of the context of what we're looking at today, what was the first battle rifle?
Well, I think even if you go to turn of the century, all right, when we were starting to convert infantry rifles over into smokeless powder. So the first few cartridges, like the Craig Jorgensen and stuff like that, you were looking at stuff where they were just wrapping their arms around smokeless powder. And then in World War I, everyone was introduced to the concept of a machine gun. All right, and so going through World War I into World War II, infantry rifles were essentially using commonality of an infantry application of a machine gun caliber. That's what our Lord and Savior 30-06 was developed as a machine gun caliber. And then as warfare changed throughout the 20th century, that's where we went through the phase of the assault rifle, where they shortened that down into an intermediate cartridge and some of the characteristics that we'll probably get into on what an assault rifle is. But then they also found a limitation where an application where an assault rifle cartridge may not be powerful enough. And so we went back up to, like Alexander's saying, a more full-size, full capability, has some compromises, but it's kind of a roller coaster in that they started with these calibers that weren't really super practical for infantry rifles, but then they found the floor of where too small was, and then they had to make this other category that was more of an intermediary for a shoulder-fired individual weapon.
Yep. And the intermediate between battle rifle and assault rifle is definitely going to be part of the conversation today, because there are some emerging platforms that are very interesting in that category.
I guess this makes sense when you consider the conflicts that have occurred over time as technology has improved and as we've explored new means of, I mean, like outfitting our infantrymen. I mean, World War I, trench warfare, and I mean, it was like post up, and whoever's got kind of the biggest arsenal and the most amount of guys can put a herd on the other side. And then it just seemed to get more and more mobile.
Yeah, well, it was open warfare in Europe, in the plains of Europe was kind of the world's most traumatic experience with warfare in the 20th century. Some exposure in the jungles, but then for a while it kind of went into other areas, and it wasn't open field tank warfare like it was in World War II.
Certainly not with Vietnam. I mean,
yeah,
those guys
not Vietnam, not a little bit Korea, but so as we kind of went into a different locale, war took a different, it was on a different context. But then also we went into other places. We started to get into Afghanistan and places like that, where the context of warfare changed, and then the needs of an infantry soldier changed too, and so they needed different tools for different applications.
Yeah.
Well, and then you have these different environments, different tools, different applications, but you also have emerging technology and capabilities converging with these different things. You have a little bit more, or a lot more tools in your tool bag to be like, hey, we're over here doing this job. We need something like this. We either need to develop something like this, or we have something like this that's going to fit.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of the age-old problem that I think everybody in every industry has, and it is, how do we make one thing that does everything perfect? And usually what you wind up finding out, or at least what I think we've found out thus far, is that's pretty dang hard, if not impossible. And, there's trade-offs everywhere. But there's a never-ending search for trying to make the perfect thing for all situations. And, I mean, you might as well. You might as well continue to seek it out and look for it. The stuff that's on the table right now that we're going to get into, I mean, with the tech that's gone into everything here, it's really, really dang good at a lot of things. But even it has its own drawbacks, which Alexander brought these guns in. He was going to touch on a few things there. But it's just it's a never-ending frustration of being a human. You just can never quite find that Goldilocks moment.
I mean, I will say Adam did say a term earlier that is a pretty darn good Goldilocks, and that is 30-06.
It's still here.
Not necessarily for what we're talking about today, but for a lot of things.
There's not a lot of 8mm Mauser still around, so it did something right.
Yeah. Right? Let's talk about versatility a little bit. Does a battle rifle give us things that others, like an assault rifle doesn't?
Absolutely. So I'm coming into this conversation very biased, right? Because if I had a single rifle, you limit me to a single rifle in the world period, it's going to be this rifle right here on the table.
I will say, and I'm totally going to interject here, but when I broached this topic with Alexander, I don't remember the exact response, but it was there was a lot of excitement and then a little bit of a how much time you got, buddy, vibe to it.
I mean, he's professionally immersed in a battle rifle project, essentially. I mean, that's what the XM8 is?
7.
I skipped one. Dang it. But yeah, the whole project is a battle rifle project. So
should we provide a little background there, too? I know we did the podcast a while back.
We might as well.
Yeah,
we might as well.
Yeah.
And then we should also address all the guns that are in the room too, because we've referenced them. And I don't think we've said what they are. But yeah, let's talk about what it is that you guys have been up to in your. How many times have you given the elevator pitch on this thing?
Oh boy, it's been quite a few times.
I mean, I'm even thinking not only to the people that you work with professionally and meet with, but also just like Christmas.
Yep.
Family get-togethers,
Yeah.
the in-laws.
So what do you do?
Yeah. Once again, how much time you got?
Yeah, how much time you got? I make rifles for the U.S. Army, or rifle optics for the U.S. Army. To let's talk about what a fire control is.
Sure.
So I am the program manager or project manager for the XM157. It is the next gen optic selected by the U.S. Army. It's currently being fielded on the XM7 and the XM250s, which are the replacements for the M4 and the 249 light machine gun. So the XM157 is a 1:8 LPVO, and then we've integrated a transparent display in the first focal plane and added a laser rangefinder. What this does for you is at the push of a button, you can range a target, and within a second, you'll range a target, get the response, calculate all the ballistics, and you will have a drop point displayed immediately in your optic. So you simply transition, you put the dot on your target, you execute the fundamentals of marksmanship, execute a good shot press, and that's it.
Yeah. And it is effectively underneath all of the technical whiz-bang gadgetry that's going on, it's still also a low-power variable optic.
It is,
just like you would regularly use with an etch reticle inside. So that's the super cool thing. You wouldn't close your eyes if you were using it, but if somehow everything about it was occluded from your vision and you were just looking through the optic, you would have no idea that you're looking through something so technologically advanced until someone started pushing buttons and things started appearing.
Absolutely.
In the image. So
in
that's
a no power
pretty
state,
sweet.
it's the same as every other, 1 to 8 on the market. So you can pull the batteries, and you still have a completely functional fire control. You still have a completely functional optic, which is it's very important because you're seeing technology push towards a digital solution, and maybe we can even talk about how fire control's evolving as well with some of these things and some of the other attempts to replicate what this is doing. And the result is an all-digital solution. And with an all-digital solution, when you lose batteries, and you inevitably will with an all-digital solution, because you will burn through batteries quickly. You have a display, you have a camera that you're running constantly, everything like that. In that scenario, when your optic dies, you're looking at a black screen. Like there's just zero reference for you. Versus one of the huge advantages of the XM157 is, were your batteries to die, you still have a 1 to 8 with an etch reticle in there.
I mean, I think that's important to point out, because I think people are oftentimes quick to point out, yeah, all this whiz-bang tech, but what if it goes down? At its core, at its most basic level, with no power, this optic is still a vast improvement over what was being fielded
Absolutely.
previously.
Yeah. Yes.
What I would liken it to is you are at the Packer game. You're watching it in real life. There's also a Jumbotron that will show you the up-close stuff that happened on the field that you might have missed thanks to the zoom lens on the camera. But if the Jumbotron goes down, you're still at the game.
You're still in the.
You're still there.
You see what's going on.
If cable providers and all the cameras go down, you're still at the game.
And you're not in the nosebleeds.
Yeah.
That's right.
This is true.
And that facilitation is the innovation that was made. Like, to me, if you look through a thermal optic and the battery goes down, it's like your TV not having power. Like, it's just a screen. Where my understanding of this project was it still had to be a passive, low-tech scope, and then this technology suite had to interface with it. So mixing those two together is what makes it next gen.
Yeah. And it fits really well with the concept of...
It absolutely does.
Well, let's be honest, almost every rifle ever, but also in the context of the battle rifle, it fits awesome. I mean, PB&J.
Well, and the Army paired the two together. Like, the whole weapon was the package that got solicited to the industry. They wanted a caliber that would defeat a specific kind of body armor. They wanted a weapon system to shoot it, and they wanted an evolution of an interface for the soldiers, my understanding of it. So
Yeah.
Separate programs, but total effort, yes.
right, yeah. Like, it all kind of came together.
Had to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Could we talk real quick about what guns are in the room as well?
So and we have some that are
Some
off
are-
the
yeah,
table
we
that we'll
just-
probably bring up here in a minute.
We have so much real estate. Yeah, let's talk. How about the ones that are on the table? And then
All
we'll
right.
talk about the honorary mentions over there.
So the two that are on the table here, we have an HK MR762, which is going to be a clone of the Army's SDMR. So I apologize to all the viewers. I'm going to be throwing acronyms like like crazy, and I'll do my best to stop and explain them. So if anybody has any questions, please just ask. Just in work mode right now. So we've got the SDMR, the Squad Designated Marksman Rifle. It got fielded a couple years ago. It's a 308, 16-inch barrel. It's got a flow-through can on it. It was a interim solution to what the XM7 program ended up being. So before that really got going, the idea was that you could provide this at the squad level and increase capability of the squad to reach out to distance. And so all these topics are related. Your two big things that your battle rifle brings to the table are engagement at distance and really ease of engagement at distance. I can take a 5.56 out a very long way. We've done demos consistently with XM157 on 5.56 guns, and we'll regularly get hits at 1,000. Like this is an easy, especially on a good day, we can easily get that done. It's easier with an SDMR in a 308.
And what arrives at the target is more potent.
It is. Yep. You have more energy on target at that point. Spotting your misses too is a thing that adds up, right? Because seeing a 5.56, splash into the dirt versus seeing a 7.62 splash in the dirt, right? There's a big difference. So the ability to spot your misses is handy with a 7.62 gun. You have to deal with more recoil, so it's maybe harder for you to stay on target. So we're going to be probably talking about engagement ranges and things like that. But so this is the closest thing we've got to Squad Designated Marksman Rifle. It's a great demo for us for fire control, kind of showing the capabilities of what a rifle can do on a modern military, accurate modern military platform. And then the other rifle we have here on the table is LMT Defense, their submission for what's called the Mid-Range Gas Gun Assault. So the MRGGA. So SOCOM has decided that they are not going to pursue 6.8, at least at the moment, right? They want their own program. They want 6.5 Creedmoor because of their own reasons. So they have two different programs. They've got MRGGA or MRGGS and MRGGA. So sniper and assault. So each are a semi-automatic 6.5 Creedmoor. The S variant was I believe it was a 20-inch barrel, and that was won by Geisley. And then the A variant is a 14.5 6.5 Creedmoor. And to me, that's a particularly exciting package, right? We have all the ballistic advantages of 6.5 Creedmoor. Over 308, we are looking at ballistics that match a 20-inch 308 out of a 14.5 barrel, right? So it's a very compelling argument. You've got amazing BCs. The BCs of a 140 grain 6.5 really just kind of blow everything else out of the water. It's incredible. The ability to buck the wind, a little bit lighter recoil, honestly a little bit lighter weight too than some of the other battle rifle offerings at the moment. So this is still up for. This is still in competition at the moment of this podcast, but this was LMT Defense's submission. I believe the other down select is Geisley, and so those two are currently in competition for that. But that is what SOCOM is looking at. Is they've already selected a 20-inch 6.5 Creedmoor for sniper rolls, and then an assault variant, which is perfect for this battle rifle conversation, in a 14.5 6.5 Creedmoor. And to me, going back to kind of an earlier part of the discussion, if I only had one rifle, I would be hard pressed to find something better than a 14.5 6.5 Creed. It is small enough for me to do room clearing and things with. It's packable, it's portable. You give me a 1 to 8 like what I've got on the fire control, and it's incredibly accurate, incredibly capable. It's fast. It's not as light as a 5.56, but it is still very portable, and the lethality that the 6.5 affords me and the ability to buck the wind that the 6.5 affords me, currently I think it's unmatched. So if I had one rifle in the world, it would be this rifle with this fire control. That's it.
Gotcha.
Conversation.
Now the XM157 is being fielded on the XM7
Correct.
as the next generation squad weapon fire control.
Yep.
Is that in play for this package at all, or not?
No, nope. XM7 is a 6.8 round, so it's a high pressure round with a different bullet. SOCOM specifically selected 6.5 Creedmoor for their weapon entry. I'm sure SIG had a variant that got submitted for MRGG S and A, but the down select currently is for LMT for the A, and like I said, Geisley won the S variant of that.
Gotcha. But the fire control optic, though, is that
It was separate. They're just choosing everything that I've heard. They're just choosing weapon for this. So
gotcha.
Very, very possible that we're going to be seeing XM157s on here. And honestly, when you're talking about the capability of this rifle, especially in a military setting, right, and the budget that SOCOM has, there's no reason not to run a fire control, right? I'm at the exact same weight as the SOCOM selected 1 to 8. That's just a regular DVO, and you add a laser rangefinder to that. I'm lighter than that complete package, so I need a diving board with that, and then I don't have a drop point inside the scope, so I can have more capability in a lighter package on a rifle that's designed to really be taking out to distance. So to me, it's the perfect pairing. Whether you're talking SDMR or MRGGA or XM7 and even 5.56 variants, right? The capability that it brings to the table. So we're kind of skipping around on this, but there's really two reasons, and Adam alluded to this, for why you're choosing a battle rifle, right? You're choosing a battle rifle for range, and you're choosing a battle rifle for penetration. And if you're talking about trying to engage something at range, why would you not select something that allowed shooting at range much more intuitive, much faster, making you much more accurate and lethal?
So there you have it. SOCOM, you can reach Alexander at 555.
I mean, every time we talk about it, though, like, you do, I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing a downside. I'm not seeing the compromise.
Well, downside's weight.
Downside is weight.
Yeah.
It's big and it's heavy.
Oh, I was just talking about the optic itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a battle rifle.
No.
No, on the optic, and I think what also is kind of undersold on it, you're consolidating multiple pieces of equipment into one, whereas I think essentially we have capability of 3 devices that would be weapon mounted. Optic, laser, and rangefinder would all be mounted on a handguard, separate things that can all come loose.
All have their own batteries.
They all have their own batteries. They all have their own service. Where now it's kind of like when we came out with the Fury binocular. It's like we put 2 things into one. It's not together. It's not lighter or more capable than any one of those things, but we put 2 things into one for an operator that is carrying a lot of equipment, of massive variety of applications,
Well, and you're opening up real estate too.
Yes.
Whether if that's just from for your hand, for less potential snag points.
You're also bringing weight rearward. So not only do we have lasers and laser rangefinder and a 1 to 8, Vortex is actively working on a thermal for this program too. That's also going to be attached to the fire control, which is going to just provide a here to unseen capability. Just like the XM157 already has, the thermal is going to take it to the next level for what can be done in a fire control. And all of that is going to shift the weight back, right? Because weight matters, but also where weight is matters, right? If we have all the weight out on the front, we become fatigued that much more easily. So having a well-balanced system is going to make the rifle feel that much more nimble, even though the weight is still there. And by combining some of these things, we're able to save on again, battery weight. We're able to save on being able to, having to have multiple displays and lenses and things like mounts and all these things really starts to, it's the totality is greater than the sum of the parts, right?
This is kind of, I know we were talking about, when we started, we were talking about the evolution of the battle rifle and modern battle rifles and things. And what you're discussing here is part of what, is the pursuit of trying to make something that's good for almost every situation. Because for, a long time, we have, I'm even thinking back to the M14 with the EBR, chassis and all this. Yep. We have one of those things here. And it is just, it's like carrying a barbell around. And, and then you couldn't really put optics on it in a tremendous fashion. Yes, you can, but it was definitely an afterthought in trying to make old things work with new things.
Absolutely.
You know, and then now it was kind of like, okay, well, optics are getting better and better. We have really good low power variables, that started coming out in the 21st century, and people started adding those to different, like everything from a carbine up to, even bolt action rifles. And so it's like you've seen optic technology increase, and then rifles have to catch up to it. And then now we're having the cartridges and munitions. Those are starting to get better and better. And so how can we make the optics catch up? And so, like, how do we keep trying to get to this point where, now we have more capability with what the firearm can do, and we can stretch it out at a greater distance. So we want our optic and its accessories to start allowing us an easier time of getting out at distance. But we'd love to do that in a way that actually condenses it down and doesn't add a ton of weight. It's like things keep kind of, I don't even know what the word is. It's, yeah.
And you swirl in the complication of the gears of change in the military turned slow. So, like, when we were trying to evolve into an assault rifle cartridge, M14 was like our kind of attempt at an assault rifle, a poor one. That's a whole other story.
Well, so I think we should go there.
Well, yeah. So we developed an intermediate 7.62 cartridge and a rifle to shoot it. And then kind of the adage was, well, we don't need that anymore. We're going to do assault rifles now. Assault rifles is all we really need. And then they found themselves in a place where they needed a battle rifle. They needed a higher power, more capable infantry rifle. So that brought about what I would, kind of pinpoint on where battle rifle came from. But in the government system, to run a whole trial like we've seen with the XM7, that takes a while. But they needed them now in the 2000s. They still had M14s on mothballs. Get those things up here.
Slap some aluminum on them.
7.62, and they remembered, they forgot about some of the shortcomings of that system they didn't like. They remembered, and that's what led to development of, he's got a SCAR here off to the side, but like that's where the SCAR program came from. And then I think that weapon system's success solidified the concept of a battle rifle in the military's mind. And then when they had time to really process it, that's where it's like, okay, maybe we need a battle rifle. We're not sure if the SCAR 17 is the right one, and we're not sure that 7.62 is the caliber. Let's figure out what optimized battle rifle looks like. And then that's I think that's where a lot of this picks up, where like the HK here, that's, essentially an evolution down from M110, a DMR system. How do we maybe optimize that a little bit more for a little bit less snipey, a little bit more assaulty? And then gets into, and this is where my knowledge really trails off. Once we get into like the actual XM7 program, they're developing a fresh sheet of paper cartridge, a fresh sheet of paper rifle, and then the entire support package that goes with it.
Yeah, there comes a point in time where you have to step back and realize, like, we keep chasing our tail with trying to make things that already existed work with new things that are coming out. And you're like, everybody stop. Like, well, hold on. Why are you working so hard to ham jam all this stuff into a package that's now 60 years old? And the guy's like, I don't know, because someone told me to. And he's like, you're thinking like, maybe now there's actually a better solution if we just started over, and so, yeah, I mean, it's like, well, we got this old cartridge. Let's just try and shove it into here. And it's like, whoa, wait, maybe there's actually a new cartridge that we can make instead. But we have all these old guns, no, stop.
Yep. Why are we trying to evolve the M14? Oh, well, because we had them.
Yeah.
Well, okay. But if you could have whatever you wanted, what would that look like? And in an institution, it's hard for them to think outside that and then solicit it and then get people to develop stuff like that. I mean, that's a decades-long process.
There's cost associated with it, too. Though.
Absolutely.
Yes. To give credit where credit's due, as a big-time high school kid Call of Duty player, the EBR chassis for the M14 will forever end that package.
That's
will
fair.
Forever go down as, on paper, just like artwork. It's one of the coolest looking. Anytime, I like, as much as it's inefficient and kind of annoying, and like you should just start over. Like anytime somebody takes something old and they just like throw a bunch of modern stuff at it and just like kind of make it work, I always love that a little bit. And I did always love that gun. But then we built one here, and I was like, I'm going to pick it up. And I was like, I would never, ever carry this. I can't believe.
I don't want to walk 10 miles with this.
Yeah. No.
The romanticism kind of went away after that.
Yeah. Well, and then, you like all the things that you had your guy in Call of Duty do, like jumping over things and running just like endlessly with it. And you're like, I guess it was just a video game.
Alexander, did you kind of seem to like jump in there when Jim was like, hey, why are we like modifying these old things?
Yeah, so we'll just jump into it, right? So I wholeheartedly agree. Like, why are we modifying old things? So part of this is, so we've got assault rifle, we've got battle rifle, and then there's some new intermediate options coming in there too, where people are going to have some very compelling platforms that split the difference and are not saying, you know what, I'm not trying to fit into an existing receiver design. I'm not trying to fit into an existing magazine length. I'm going to come up with a completely new rifle, right? And I am very excited about those programs. They put my 6.5 Creedmoor in risk of being replaced if they actually get adopted. So I think to get to that point, though, I think we should probably go back and kind of talk assault rifles and battle rifles and history to kind of rehash some of what we just did, but kind of provide a context for the conversation as well.
For sure. My one major fear, and it's hard not to slap these things that are on the table right now on the table first, is that, I mean, these are like, they're very shiny, right? Not like that's a metaphor, but
they're very new, not necessarily shiny.
I'm like, are we ever going to be able to talk about the stuff that's on that we still have on the floor and that their predecessors, and like you said, provide that context.
Yeah. So for me, so we've had full size rifles and carbines for nearly since the dawn of the firearm itself, right? We have a long barrel version and we have a short barrel version. With metallic cartridges, we start playing around with different lengths of cartridges and more or less capacity. But to me, we really don't get into battle rifles until modern bolt action or semi-modern bolt action start coming into play. World War I, as everyone's starting to adopt Spitzer bullets and high velocity rifle rounds, it's really when you see the battle rifle. Well, quickly people understand that while that rifle was capable of engaging targets at 1,000 plus meters, the chances of engaging that far were exceedingly low, especially for trench warfare scenarios, right? So then we see the advent of the submachine gun, right? So we now have a pistol cartridge. It's super high rate of fire. We've drastically reduced its capability, but we don't need much more than that. Yes, we have a lethality reduction as well, but hey, this is early 1900s. We're going to take everything we can get, and I'd rather have a submachine gun than a bolt-action rifle for clearing trenches, right?
Well, and I would have to imagine just the amount of ammo a person could carry goes up as well.
Absolutely, yep. I mean, you can have sticks full of 9mm versus 5-round stripper clips for your full-size battle rifle. Progressed to World War II, U.S. has entered the war with the M1. The M1 Garand, amazing rifle. It's semi-automatic. It's a very compelling small arms solution. And we still see this split between submachine guns and full-size rifles, right? And then this is where we start to have assault rifles come in. So we have the M1 carbine that you could argue is assault rifle, approaching that intermediate solution between a submachine gun and a full-size rifle. It's kind of approaching it from the pistol perspective, right? We have a straight wall cartridge, lengthened. It's not high velocity. It has mediocre terminal performance, right? Its trajectory is not real compelling. But you know what? It's a lightweight, handy platform. They have semi-automatic and full auto variants of it. It's very controllable. It's very light. And yeah, I mean, it offers some compelling advantages over the M1.
It had a stock.
It had a stock. Yeah, I mean,
it was really replacing pistols. Was the original concept.
Yep. And then the Germans changed everything.
So it was the original
PCC.
MP7.
I mean, you could
Think about that.
You could connect those
You
dots.
could connect them, yeah. But then the Germans change everything with the
as they
Sturmgewehr.
usually do.
Yeah. And instead of approaching it from a pistol perspective, they take the 8mm cartridge and then they make the 8mm Kurz, right? And they develop the Sturmgewehr. So Kurz, German, short. So they take a rifle that is still a necked down rifle cartridge and they shorten it. They reduce the powder capacity. And that's when you really see the world change and the assault rifle really, truly being born.
Did they beat the AK?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the AK
That's
is
what I thought.
a
Like,
combination
there's
of the
some-
Sturmgewehr and the M1 Garand. Like,
Right.
there are very strong ties to both of those weapons with the AK-47. And now the Sturmgewehr itself, important in history, not really strategic, not really of strategic significance.
I don't
right?
see a lot of them in the back
Wars
of
have
Hiluxes.
consequences. Yeah.
Right. Yep. But that's really where assault rifles are born, right? And you have the Soviet Union, who is very, very drawn to submachine guns, right? Like if you looked at the way how the Soviet Union fought World War II, there were a plethora of submachine guns, right? It was lots of assaults with submachine guns. So they looked at what they developed first, the SKS, and then the AK-47 very shortly after. They saw those as submachine gun replacements. So they saw that as a submachine gun with more range. So post-war, the Soviets have developed the SKS, then they move on to develop the AK-47, and the U.S. is still moving along with the M1 Garand because, damn it, we won World War II with this. It's amazing. Why not?
The gears of change turn slow.
Yes, indeed. And then we see conflicts in Korea, and we say, okay, well, maybe we should be looking at this. Detachable magazines have their advantages. And so we put out a solicitation for a new rifle. And this is not just the United States. This is a NATO effort, right? And once again, we are selecting a new rifle, and we are selecting a new cartridge with this. And the 7.62, when it became the 7.62 NATO, the 308 Winchester, we're going to use them interchangeably for this conversation. There were competitors to this. The British had a 280 that was very, very close to being adopted, which is fascinating when you look at a slightly less capability, slightly shorter cartridge, slightly smaller diameter, and it's almost like
Some would argue it was better, and the U.S. kind of put their thumb on the scale and said, "You will pick this."
I don't think it's an argument. It's exactly what
that's
happened.
exactly
right?
what happened.
We were drawn to 30 cal because we're 30 cal. We've been shooting
World
30
Wars.
cal since 3040 Craig. We believed in this. We have this idea of American marksmanship, right? So we need to continue that, right? Because it's just part of the American ethos that Americans are riflemen, and so we need to reach out to 1,000 yards because we're Americans and because we're riflemen, and so we need to reach out to 1,000 yards. And
I gotta stop. That's a compelling argument to me.
it is. It is.
Mark's getting those goosebumps again.
Except when there's more things at 10 yards that can kill you than there are at 1,000 yards. Like, people are more worried about what's the imminent danger than the distant threat. So I think that drives a lot of this evolution.
Hey, but it's kind of one of those things where you're like,
But it's apple
where you're
pie
like,
and
man, I got a truck and I drive it on the road most of the time, but I got an 8-inch lift kit on it because that one time that I
tires.
need to hop a curb,
yeah.
I don't want to be.
Yep.
You don't want to be scraping anything.
I don't want to be scraping my transfer case.
Yeah.
That's
And you got towing capacity for 3 trailers larger than you have.
right.
So we 100% bully NATO into adopting
The American way.
308, right? We have a bias towards 308. If you look at velocities, you're really not that different from a 308 versus a 30-06. It's really just ever so slightly shortened, especially when you're talking about powders at the time. Not looking at modern hunting loads, but military cartridges at the time. It was a more efficient case design. You shorten it a little bit, and in terms of ergos, not operational system, but in terms of ergos, the M14 is effectively to the soldier an M1 with a magazine, right? I mean, you kind of have the same large op rod reciprocating. You have the same safety design. It's just you have a 20-round box mag, and so this is what we see as our solution going forward. We field the M14. You have Europe fielding
For an assault rifle. We field this as an assault
yes,
rifle.
so and this rifle is meant to replace the M1 Garand. It's to replace the M1 carbine. It's to replace the BAR, for the Browning automatic rifle as a light as a automatic rifle role for a squad. So you had M14s that were machine guns, which is part of the reason why they can't be sold under CMP, and that's why the U.S. has a huge surplus of them. So it was assault rifle, but it was also battle rifle because we wanted to reach out to distance, right? This was supposed to be the single solution. 20 rounds, we have semi-auto, and we have detachable mag, so we don't need M1 carbine anymore. We don't need, any of the 45 caliber submachine guns, and it's a 20-round magazine. That's the same as a BAR, except it's a lighter, handier package, so we can get rid of all these guns, and we're going to have a single rifle that does everything. And then we enter Vietnam, right? And there's some very interesting statistics as we're looking at warfare for how and when people engage the enemy, right? And we're seeing statistics of most people don't engage, over 300 meters. So if we really have a cartridge that's capable of reaching out to 300 meters, we've got, some high-tech plastic guns that are coming to market that are lightweight. We're starting to use aluminum because that's pretty cool and lightweight. We're replacing steel. And then you have some special forces elements that end up picking up the early AR-15, and there are just reports of absolutely devastating lethality in close quarters combat as some of the advisors in Vietnam. Interestingly enough, some of that lethality is because at the time, those rifles were just barely stabilizing bullets. So as they were just barely stabilizing, when they contacted flesh, they then immediately lost stability, started to tumble and yaw, and so you had devastating wound patterns from these rounds. These early accounts of limbs being blown off, things like that, are because of that round was effectively not stable coming outside the barrel.
Yeah, and they weren't super far.
They weren't super far. It wasn't. It was an accident, and then, without realizing the relationship between those two, they tighten up the twist rate, and you still have a very lethal package with 5.56, but you don't have the reports of the limbs being blown off and things like that, like you had with the very early AR-15 adoption.
I mean, you can see where they got. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
also another very compelling argument. Like, oh my gosh,
right? And if we look at weights, it's incredible, right? So I grabbed some weights before I came over here. For 30 rounds of M855, we're looking at 12.8 ounces. For 20 rounds of M80 ball, we're looking at a pound and 1.2 ounces. So I have 10 more rounds and still lighter weight.
Yeah.
Right. Especially when I'm in a situation where I'm not engaging, I can't see very far. Yes, I have, depending on how we define lethality, I have increased lethality of the 308, but I have fewer rounds. I have all sorts of sufficient lethality with the 5.56. So, we end up adopting 5.56, right? Kind of through a series of things, because the M14 as the do-all, it's one of those things when you balance, you try to compromise on everything. Well, are you great at any one thing in particular, right? And with the M14, it wasn't, right? It wasn't a good rifle. It had a wildly short service history, besides the fact that, yes, we did pull them out later, but it was kind of because we had them rather than because we wanted to use M14s.
Yeah.
So then, we're off. We look at the AR-15. We adopt it as the M16. We do a couple variants, and, that's that for a very long time. We moved to M4s because, hey, shorter, lighter is better for room clearing. So we transitioned nearly everyone to M4s. At this same time, seeing the success in Vietnam of the 5.56 cartridge, the Soviet Union, much to the frustration of Mikhail Kalashnikov, moves from the 7.62 to the 5.45, kind of copying the lethality that you get from the 5.56 cartridge. And as a general world, we've really then narrowed down on, this small caliber 5.56 assault rifle for nearly everything. We still have stockpiles of 7.62 guns, right? Europe still fielded a whole bunch of 7.62 guns. The British fought the Falklands with 7.62 guns, so it took a while for the 7.62 guns to be pushed aside in some countries, but they were kind of relegated to to the past. And for a fast-paced urban warfare, which is what we saw the Cold War coming to, right? The idea is that you would roll up to an area in an armored personnel carrier, you'd all come spilling out, and then you'd have short range, full auto weapons that were incredibly light, incredibly agile. Why would you need a bigger cartridge? So we started even looking at subcalibers, right? We started looking at 5.7 and 4.6 as potential options for folks, right? So we really went on the low end, and then we still had 7.62 guns, right, for sniper roles and things like that. They still had their diehards, but really 5.56 reigned supreme. And then we get into War on Terror, right? And we're fighting in a different environment, and there's a couple of things that we realize 7.62 still does well. It punches through intermediate barricades, right? Like punching through cinder block walls and things like that. A 7.62 NATO cartridge does that exceptionally well, right? Versus a 249. If you can get a 240 into the fight, right? It's different. We also realize that there's some range advantages of carrying a 308 as well, especially in Afghanistan, where guys aren't being necessarily engaged with AK-47 fire. There's some, right? But AK-47 with 7.62 by 39 really starts to peter off when we start talking distances. But guys are being engaged with 7.62 by 54R from PK machine guns. And while you can engage back with 5.56 with a 62 grain projectile, it's not an ideal situation to try to engage at, ranges exceeding, 600 meters with a 5.56. Can it be done? Yes. Is it easy? No, especially not with, a 4X, even a 4X ACOG.
It's not enough just to hit. You have to hit and deliver energy.
Right. And there's some very interesting anecdotes with all this too of how the enemy responds to suppressive fire. So even though I can get 5.56 around there were reports of Afghans who were not concerned about 5.56. They were still absolutely lethal, but they're like, it's 5.56. You shoot 7.62 at them, they pay a little bit more attention. You shoot 50 cal at them, and then they actually take cover. So there's some interesting psychological elements too of suppressive fire. There have been some studies done by countries all over the world. I read a particularly fascinating French report about it, talking about how when you're choosing a cartridge and a caliber, you have lots of elements here besides just terminal performance. You have, external ballistics, various trajectories, and then you also have how that works as a covering fire, right? Like the amount of dirt that something throws up really does get people's attention, and
That's
they
what I
may
was
duck to cover more or less.
I was about to mention that, and I hadn't really thought about this previously, but you were talking about even just like spotting your splash in the distance. But yeah, if you're in a battle and you're seeing like a little puff here, like that's going to be less intimidating to seeing like whatever, a cinder block come apart, or like a big puff of dirt. Or
We've got a new statistic: psychological ballistics.
I like it.
There you go. There you go.
Now all the ammo manufacturers are going to be really pining for the psychological ballistics on this cartridge are far exceed.
It's going to be right next to velocity, energy,
right there on the box.
Right there on the box.
Yep.
So with the war in Afghanistan, right? We get we get the reports of failures from the M4 system in heavy firefights. They get gummed up. So we see a resurgence of looking at a new rifle.
Is that just like the environment, like dust, debris, sand?
Dust, debris, sand, carbon. The fact that it's a direct gas impingement system, right? So it's depositing carbon back in the rifle itself. And the Army does a whole bunch of studies, and they find that there is a failure rate with the M4, and there are weapons that have higher reliability, but it's not worth the cost to move to those new platforms. And part of that whole search for a new rifle, there was talk of new cartridges as well. So this is when you really have the 6.5 Grendel being a wildly popular cartridge and what was looked to be an up-and-coming cartridge. And you have 6.8 SBC. Developed by a couple groups, and that was supposed to be the thing.
It's going to change everything.
It was supposed to change everything.
It was
fit in M4, magazines and things like that. Both of them were, but they had their disadvantages. They didn't really offer enough over 5.56. And when you're talking about something not only the size of the U.S. military, right, but now we have NATO that's coming into this as well, because this Afghanistan is a NATO conflict, right? Not necessarily that we were sharing munitions for it, right? But the idea behind NATO is shared calibers and shared capability, so that we can, like we did in World War II, send things to people. But instead of having to make 303 British, for them, if they had 30-06, we just crank out more 30-06. So we not only have this entire surplus of inventory on the U.S. side, but we have this very international political decision with some of our closest allies of what we're going to be adopting as a cartridge, and so we didn't see it at the time. It didn't take off. So we're still fielding 5.56 largely. We start to see more DMR guns come into play in variety of form factors. We see M14s dust off, brought back with various stocks and things like the EBR chassis and things like that. We start to see the M110 be pressed into service as a semi-automatic sniper system. It's people start pulling off optics off of that, putting in other things. SOCOM elements start playing around with a variety of guns. And then we have some kind of intermediate solutions here. Like, hey, let's field an SDMR, right? Like it provide the ability to reach out to distance. It shares ammo with the 240. At least it shares a cartridge with the 240. Allows us to reach out to distance, so we can respond to those threats offered by a PKM, right? And we have the ability to punch through some cover that 5.56 previously had struggled with. Anything that's involving small arms is a political decision that has a lot of emotion with it in the Army. It has its fans. It definitely has its enemies. But it's what the Army does, at least as an intermediate solution. There was talk of even another intermediate solution as tensions with Russia pop back up on the forefront of politics. Never really went away. But it starts to be more mainstream here. And so we have, again, two big reasons for selecting a battle rifle. And it's range, which is going to be defined as overmatch. So overmatch is when the enemy can engage you, but you can't engage them. That's at least the definition we'll use for this conversation. And that's what we had with 5.56 versus, PKMs.
It's the firearm version of like longer reach in boxing.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. So we've got overmatch. And then we've got the proliferation of level 4 body armor, right? So level 4 body armors oftentimes can they've changed the definition a couple of things. So we have the ability to stop 5.56, right? And when you have the ability to stop 5.56 at point blank range, you can understand a desire to move away from that cartridge, right? And get something with increased lethality. And now there's lots of different mindsets on how you engage body armor, right? And there's different ways that you defeat body armor. You defeat body armor through penetration or blunt force trauma, right? Back face deformation. You still cause blunt trauma to the torso, or you shoot around it, which seems, it's an advocated solution, right? If all you have is a 5.56, you shoot the plate until they fall down, and then you keep shooting, and eventually your rounds are going to hit someplace that's not plate. So we have this threat of near peer threats. So people that are close in capability to us fielding level 4 body armor, and we have these lessons learned of having been in positions where we did not have overmatch against our enemy, and the U.S. Army starts to take a very long and hard look at what our primary rifle is, right? We've had the M16 since '65, right, and then variants thereof with M16A2 and M4, and what Marines are fielding, things like that. And so the U.S. Army decides, let's take a look at a battle rifle, and we're going to define a diameter of a bullet. And we're going to provide the bullet because the Army has also moved away from lead projectiles. So with the Army fielded the M855 for a very long time, and then they moved to the M855A1, which has a same bullet weight, higher pressure, and an exposed penetrator. Same thing with the M80. We moved from the M80 to the M80A1. I believe that went from like a 147 or 149 grain bullet, and I think the M80A1 is a 130 grain.
So they weren't worried about Raptors? That wasn't their primary concern?
they were not. And so they were providing the 6.8 bullet lead-free projectile, and they went to the entire industry and said, hey, give me a solution that fires this bullet, and I want it to achieve this velocity. Number one, it's really got to achieve this velocity, and they needed that velocity to penetrate body armor at a given distance, and then that velocity with the BC of that bullet should remove any overmatch issues that you had, and then so ultimately they went through a couple different programs actually. So it started off as just a machine gun program, and then I actually don't know what happened. I mean, there was an end to it, but it was a very, very quiet end. And then there was they started the NGSW program. So you had NGSW and you had NGSW fire control. As we talked about, this is the fire control on the table. And then NGSW ended up selecting the SIG XM7 solution and the XM250. And there was some really interesting technology with that competition that you got to see where the industry could and would go with some of these things, because what the Army also wanted was a lighter weight ammo. So you had two entrants that were a polymer case, and then SIG ended up submitting a hybrid with a steel base and a brass body. And the hybrid or the polymer cases were very, very interesting. They were very lightweight. I don't think that they were quite ready for prime time. There were some teething issues with both of the guns that were selected, and so the other two entrants weren't quite nearly as mature of solutions. So we ended up with the bimetal case design. But we got to see what the industry was working on, and there's some pretty interesting stuff there. So SIG achieved the velocity objectives via a very high pressure cartridge. So the XM7 is I believe it's a 13.5-inch barrel suppressed. And they were able to largely achieve the velocity objectives. There have been some small changes to bullet design and a couple of things, but that's what the Army ended up selecting. Very interesting weapon platform. We have a short stroke gas piston design, so we moved away from some of the disadvantages of a DI platform. So should be a little bit cleaner. You have some folding stocks on there, and we're seeing the Army for the first time field suppressors in a widespread capacity. Now, it's very interesting to note that this truly was the U.S. Army doing this, and the reason why I call that out is because the Marine Corps, while still evaluating next gen, decided to go a different direction. And the Marine Corps has stuck with 5.56. So they selected a 16-inch barrel HK platform, the M27 IAR, individual automatic rifle, I think it is. And then they suppressed those, and they put 1-8s on them. So Marine Corps, being a force that wants to close and engage with the enemy, decided that they were going to largely get rid of the 249, field everybody this very capable rifle. They're going to achieve lethality through accuracy on target. We're going to give them the advantage of suppressors. We're going to give them the advantage of modern LPVOs, and that's how the Marine Corps is moving forward as of this moment. Again, we'll see as NGSW gets picked up, and this is still we haven't discussed the NATO element of this yet too. So Army has decided 6.8. I assume with the leverage that the U.S. has, we are going to see 6.8 probably push through as the NATO cartridge. And while other countries are evaluating it, we haven't come to they haven't necessarily come to the exact same conclusion that the U.S. has. So it's a very interesting situation, and you can understand the two reasons why someone how we got where we got, right, with the XM7. As with anything, there are downsides, right? Weight of ammunition, weight of all the support equipment, even just magazine carriers. Right now, you need to change. You need to upsize. We've got a heavier mag, and we've got a bigger mag, so we need to swap out all the equipment, and so everything gets heavier. And even though we selected what was supposed to be a lighter weight case, we're still fielding it with steel 20-round mags, which means that either for the exact same soldier loadout in terms of weight, we carry far fewer rounds, or if we have the exact same number of rounds we're carrying a lot more weight. So there are definitely people who are not fans of these Army's decisions. I noticed you trying to weigh them in your hand.
Yep, very accurate scale here.
Yep. So I weighed them ahead of time for
Thank
us.
you.
'Cause I knew this was going to come up. So it's very interesting. Again, one of the program requirements was a lightweight cartridge.
Yeah, you can
And
actually you can feel that.
depending on how you define the cartridge weight, if you compare that to a 270, it is in fact lighter. However, that 6.5 Creedmoor, weighed them just before we came on, actually comes in a touch later for just the case to case there. So
I don't know if it's so much that I could feel the difference, but you can just feel the fact that it has a steel base, you can just tell that the distribution of weight is different. You can tell that all the weight's down low.
it is, and steel offers some interesting advantages, right? In terms of being able to deal with high pressure. We're seeing the new 7mm cartridge from Federal come out, and we're going to see more companies playing with all steel cases as well. There's some very exciting things there. So kind of talking about the advantages and disadvantages of these, right? Hey, it's heavier. There's more recoil. There's more system weight. You're carrying fewer rounds for the same amount of ammunition. So why don't we go back to 5.56? Valid question, right? I can achieve some of my overmatch by switching to something like Mark 262 with a 77 grain bullet, right, to get me a little bit better BC at distance, but it still doesn't punch through intermediate barricades as well, and it still doesn't solve my body armor question. So we have cartridges like 6-ARC that are now becoming much more popular and mainstream, right? And we're pushing into this battle rifle capability in a small frame platform. Personally, I love the idea of 6-ARC, but I personally dislike the execution of 6-ARC, and because it's going to we're trying to shove a lot of capability into an existing platform.
Yeah.
Right? So the case that they chose, you need to make your bolt thinner to accept the larger case head, which makes your bolts weaker. So to have the same strength of bolts, you need to use advanced steels to try to have the same lifespan out of bolts. Magazines have also been an issue. Geisley seems to have cracked the code on them. Geisley makes, so SOCOM's been looking at 6-ARC because it's a very capable cartridge. Very light, very handy. A lot of the advantages of, a full battle rifle with, the weight of an assault rifle. Why would I not be interested in that? So you've seen a couple companies that SOCOM traditionally goes to make 6-ARC, and really the only one who seems excited about it is Geisley. And again, they've done a good job. They've got what seems to be a good rifle, and it's popular, right? You get a lot of capability out of a 12.5-inch barrel, and it's a lightweight, and you don't need to be swapping, pouches and things like that. But you're still shoehorning a capability into an existing 5.56 platform. So while the battle rifle space is likely to be going the route of 6.5 Creedmoor, with SOCOM looking at that, going the route of 6.8, obviously with the U.S. Army selection, and whatever NATO decides, which is very likely going to be 6.8. I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that that's not the case. There's an emerging market in here as we start to say, well, man, there's such a big gap between a 5.56 and a battle rifle. I wish that I could get something in between there. And there's two programs that are particularly exciting to me. And the first one is the Surefire ICAR. And this was released by Magpul at SHOT Show this year for the magazine for it. So to me, when you have Magpul making a magazine, hey, that means there's some real support behind the program, and I'm excited for that. So while there's very little information about it, it's a new receiver size, and it is a rifle designed from the ground up for a 6-ARC. So the disadvantages that we get from, having to shoehorn into a magazine length, from having to have, compromises on the bolt, they designed a new rifle for it. So it's a
new magazine.
And a new magazine length. So you don't have compatibility with M4, with your entire collection of AR-15s for the commercial side, but you have a rifle that was actually designed around a cartridge.
Yeah,
right. Which is really great.
I'm excited about what you're describing too, and I'm okay with it if for no other reason than just for the sake of development, because what you can't help but notice is that in the last 20 years, maybe 15, I don't know, people get all excited because someone's coming out with a new gun.
Yep.
And they're like, check this out, brand new gun. We designed it from the ground up.
Yep.
It accepts AR mags, AR triggers, AR safeties, AR bolt releases, AR pistol grips, AR stocks, AR carbine buffer tubes, and then you're like, it's an AR. Because then it just, their design criteria keeps getting, oh, well, there's another hard point that we can't, oh, there's another, we'll maybe etch a little skull into the magazine. Well, I don't know, but we just keep getting more ARs. And I love ARs.
Yeah. I mean,
but like,
I don't disagree, Jim, but I think there are a lot of advantages to that as well when it comes to compatibility
Absolutely.
and things that are available. You know, you come up with like a bazillion proprietary things. That's great. It's going to work for you.
As a consumer,
what if you need to fix it? What if you know?
If you strip aside a lot of things that I'm getting at, like as a consumer who's just trying to like, I want a gun, I want to be an American, heck yeah, get that. Okay, now it's really easy because I can just go to the market and it's like great. It takes the grips that I can find 150 examples of on Brownells right now. But as for me, it's primarily enthusiasm. For professional operators, it can be for actual advantage in what it is that you're doing in your job. But like sometimes I'm just like, I just want to see something new. I don't even care if it doesn't accept Glock mags.
Well, and I agree that, you know, things like that help us get to that next thing.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's defining what that next thing is.
Yeah.
So the other platform that I'm very excited about is in the exact same solution space. Once again, it falls perfectly between an AR-10 and an AR-15. Intermediate receiver size. Once again, mags made by Magpul. I reached out to them to see if they were the same mags. They didn't respond. I would suspect that they are different mags. And it's an FN won the contract for LICC, lightweight individual combat carbine, I believe it is. And it's
So we've got iCarly and we've got Lick.
Yep, and MRGG and SDMR and
Mr. Gaga, yeah.
Don't forget about all the rest of them.
We're gonna have to put like some sort of in the notes like
definitions,
an acronym.
Yeah,
Sure.
acronym list.
Yeah,
There you
except
go.
our podcast notes will be called PNs. So nobody knows where to find them.
Check
I
the
just want
PNs.
podcast notes. Yeah, it's in the PNs. I don't know what that is. I just want podcast.
It's where we describe all the acronyms.
That's right.
so hard to get that.
I don't
Yeah.
understand why this is hard to figure out.
Exactly. So this that entire program is one that's also very exciting to me. We're talking about a long stroke gas piston system from FN, which is interesting, a deviation from the short stroke gas piston. New ergos that they learned from the SCAR, so charging handle more forward, non-reciprocating, folding stock, some of the things that we're seeing. The cartridge is 6.5, and it's an all-steel case, so we get some actual weight savings out of it. And the magazines that they were shipping with were 25-round mags. So once again, falling perfectly between a 20-round, what's traditionally a 20-round battle rifle mag, and a 30-round, assault rifle mag, coming in right in the middle and splitting the difference between the two, and really starting to blur the lines for what is this, right? And it's going to be a very interesting option depending on how warfare changes, right? Especially if we look at Ukraine, right, and how Ukraine is being fought. Some reverting to trench warfare, urban fighting. There are calls for very short battle rifles that have 10-inch barrels to try to be as compact as a Mark 18. Well, the problem is you're still not going to beat a Mark 18 for how light and compact you are, right? Everything is bigger on a battle rifle. You've got your magazine length, you've got your receivers, you've got your bolt. All of this ends up being added mass, and then you just have the wasted powder. You become so overbore. So people have done 8-inch HKs, in 308, and they're flashbangs every time you touch them off, right? There's so much pressure there. There's some interesting YouTube videos. I mean, it could be an interesting video for us if we were willing to SBR some bolt guns. Of you have a 7.62 by 39 out of a longer barrel or a slightly longer barrel than a very short G3, and you get better ballistics and a lighter package, and then the overall package length is the same size or slightly shorter because you're dealing with a shorter receiver and everything like that. So when you start talking shortening rifles much below 13 and a half inches, which is kind of an interesting length. LMT arrived at 13 and a half inches for their 308. FN arrived at 13 and a half inches for their SCAR. We have the XM7 arriving at 13 and a half inches for the 6.8. Personally, I feel like you really start to have a lot of diminishing returns of shortening the barrel much below that because you're taking away the velocity, which is what gets you overmatch and penetration, right? Velocity is key to both of those. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything evolves because the downside of this rifle here on the table, it's not nearly as compact as a Mark 18 with a short little can on it, and if all I'm doing is room clearing, having a red dot of some kind is an awesome advantage if all I'm doing is room clearing. And if I've got a very short compact package, this is going to have a hard time competing against that. But if I'm reaching out to distance, hey, this is where this also reigns supreme, and it's a compact enough packages to be able to do both. But if I'm specializing, I'm going to go with the longer barrel for long range, and I'm going to go with a shorter receiver, bigger magazine capacity, and everything like that for CQB.
I got an idea.
What's that?
I'm going to design a gun that has a adjustable barrel length, and what it's going to be is on the forend. Don't know how I'm going to design it yet, but on the forend, it's going to look like a shotgun pump,
like a telescoping fishing rod.
Yeah, it'll be like a shotgun pump out on the front of the forend. So when you want to do long range stuff, you just go shh, and then the barrel just extends. And then when you're like, oh, I got to clear this room, kick the door, shh, then you also get the sound. But then also the barrel came in and it shrunk down like 6 inches.
You better patent that and buckle up for some phone calls, Jim, because
it's coming.
Hey, I
think a lot of the folks that Alexander knows are going to be knocking on your door.
Patent pending.
Great ideas.
SOCOM, if you'd like to reach me, my number is 55.
Conceptually, though, Alexander, when I think I may have said something like this earlier on, but when we talk about these converging technologies and things like that, and I think of a cartridge like the 6-ARC, where it's like, you're still getting, I think it's 25 in the mag with that, right?
Yeah,
I think.
Yep, with these new mags, or 30. Yeah, 30. I mean, do you get 30 with a 6-ARC mag?
Yeah. Okay.
So with the right 6-ARC mag, you will. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you've got capacity, you've got a smaller form factor system. To me, something like that still fits in that battle rifle and category. Now, I'd ask you, a question I would have is just like the sheer mass, like it is a little bit less than say like a 6.5 Creed or something like that, or a 308. And then you've got high pressure, kind of, in my opinion, being this next evolution.
It
like
will be.
Maybe you're able to shorten that package overall. Like, does that become the one rifle that does do it all?
Well, that's why I'm saying that the LICC to me is the thing that potentially competes with this. But to me,
which one is the LICC?
The like a 25 round 6.5 cartridge, all steel. So you've got all these advancements. It's splitting the difference between the two. I think it's going to be a very compelling option for a dual rifle. You reduce your range, off of what this offers, off of what XM7 offers, right? So you're reducing the advantage that you have for your overmatched distances, and realistically, you're going to be reducing the range that you can penetrate body armor. And that's an advocacy of the 6.8 cartridges, is that, SIG says, hey, we can always upscale in the classic, weapon versus armor, right? Armor is going to get better, so we've got room to drive this to an even higher pressure. So there is some legitimate long-term thinking you need to do. I mean, we adopted the last.
It's like you think about this is what we need to do now, but
exactly, what are we going to need to do in the future, right? So trying to play all sides, right? That's one of the things that the Army was very likely sold on in the selection of the 6.8 is hey, we can still drive this faster. But if we're looking at new cartridges, well, a slightly smaller case, a little bit less recoil, but easier to manage in something like that new FN, and all steel, so we can still be driving high pressures. Maybe there's some validity to that, and maybe we arrive at a 6.5, maybe we arrive at 6. But hitting on an earlier conversation, what are you doing with the cartridge? What are your goals? What are your objectives? One of those studies talking about dirt that's being thrown up in terms of suppressive fire. Might reference it too much, but I think it's a very interesting thing. When a couple other countries did this study, they found that the sweet spot lay between 6.3 and 6.8 for lethality and terminal ballistics, and then moderate bullet weights, and the ability to impact some sort of psychological effect on suppressive fire. So is 6 is very close. Maybe it's sufficient for that, maybe not. There's going to be a lot of testing that goes into all of that, and it's all individual use case scenario. So just because if I only had one, I would choose this because I like the ability for it to reach out to range. I like the fact that it's semi-auto. Those other platforms don't exist in a way for me to get them yet in terms of the intermediate rifles. I don't like the compromises that 6 ARC has to have personally in a AR-15 cartridge. So I'm going to upscale. I'm going to go a little bit heavier, and then I've got a capable hunting cartridge with reasonable velocities and terminal performance at distance and things like that. And so that gets me my pick. But that being said, if I don't have only one rifle, absolutely there's going to be 5.56 in my collection. There's going to be 6.5 in my collection. There's going to be magnums in my collection. Been listening to a couple podcasts more on DMRs as well, and there's some. I kind of like this thinking where if you're 0 to 400, 5.56 has amazing advantages, right? Because it's very flat. It's very lethal. You can spot your own impact very well because your shot isn't disturbed. And yes, you're not penetrating body armor, or not penetrating body armor as wide of a level of body armor. But your ability to rapidly engage targets is incredible, right? I've done a couple competitions. So Quantified Performance as a gas gun competition where you run what you brung, right? And so they've got a category that's for rifles of 16 inches or less with LPVOs, which is really cool, right? And it's fun to see competitions like that. And target ranges, 125 yards or so all the way out to 1,000, or a little bit beyond, depending on the competition. And so I've got to shoot that with 308, and I've got to shoot that with 5.56. This is very, very, very new, so I haven't got to stretch this legs for its competition. But
That's
this is
the
a
6.5 Creed.
This is a 6.5 Creed, but this is a direct result of that competition. In running 308, you were more disturbed when you were practically on a barricade, right? And it's heavier and it's more fatiguing. And 5.56 was amazing. Running a tuned JP, the ability to just pull the trigger and it's a hit. You're transitioning before you even see the target react because it was a hit. There's awesome advantages to 5.56, especially at close distance. But as the winds start picking up, as we start to see the distances increase, spotting my own impacts become more difficult, and it just gets pushed around. I was shooting with a coworker who was shooting a long-barreled 6.5 Creedmoor, and he was holding edge of target, and I was holding like a mil off, right? The difference between being able to hold center and still get a hit on something, or just hold on the edge of a target versus, okay, here's where my shot is, even though I was shooting a heavy 5.56 bullet, in high winds, it showed where its disadvantages were, but it also had incredible advantages as well. And if we're talking under 400, it kind of like where we were picking the M16 for 300 meters and in 400 meters with good modern bullet. There's still some very real validity to 5.56 and cartridges that are similar to 5.56. And then when we start talking 400 to 800, it's where a large frame or a battle rifle comes into play, something like a 308, a 6.5, or a 6.8, all carry a little bit more energy. Ideally, have better BCs. Again, the 140 grain. You compare the 140 grain 6.5 Creedmoor to even a 178 grain 308, and it's not fair in terms of the ability to buck the wind. I don't care about
in favor of
the 140.
Yeah.
In favor of the 6.5. Mm-hmm. I don't care about trajectory anymore because we've got rangefinders, and especially if I've got fire control, the important thing for me is to hit the target. And one of the biggest things for me to hit the target is making sure that I don't have to hold as much wind. Until we crack the code on wind sensing, it's going to be a factor to it.
What a flex to be able to say no. What about trajectory? Don't care.
Don't care.
Literally
don't
doesn't
care.
bother me.
As long as it gets there and it has the sufficient terminal performance on their side, I'm more concerned about the ability to buck the wind. Even though this has great ballistics, I care more about BC for wind than I do for drop.
Oh, you're still doing trajectory?
That's cute.
Yeah, that's
cute.
Nice.
And then once you go beyond 800, you start talking, for easily hitting a target, Magnum territory. Obviously, yeah, we can do it with 5.56, but just for ease of use, we're talking 800 and beyond. It's where your 300 wins and 338s and things like that come into play. So everyone's got their own philosophies. It's one I've been listening to a lot, and I feel like in having got to shoot some of the scenarios that I have, I kind of like the thinking. So to me, the battle rifle isn't without its disadvantages, but the ability to easily reach out to 8, I'll take it.
Adam,
Mark,
do you concur?
I mean, it's all I'm still taking it in.
Similar philosophies, different philosophies.
It really depends on your context of application, because like when you talk about these evolutions of cartridges beyond 5.56, like a lot of times, a lot of what was just described, that's in terms of rifle shooting, or like in terms of we're in a position and I'm going to take a rifle shot at whatever, picture your typical rifle range at where there's targets at various distances. If you mix in the application of needing to shoot more, like I like 6 arc for some of those intermediate distances too in competition. Like we have to be careful about using the term competition, because we use one word to describe like an entire universe of things.
Yeah.
Right. So like the competitions that I do in 3-gun, I can see matches where a cartridge like a 6 arc or a 6.8 or any 6.5, any of these would have an advantage for hitting a target at an extended distance, but that's not the only challenge. So playing around with using 6 arc and 3-gun, because contemporary 3-gun matches in certain venues have really become longer range and heavier biased in score towards longer range performance. So I've been exploring using other rifle cartridges. Those cartridges always come at the disadvantage of the magazine that supports them. So a 6 arc, the biggest magazine you can get is a 30-round mag. If you're up against competitors who have 5.56s and they can use 45-round mags, 60-round drums, or something like that, and that gets them an advantage in score over you, it starts to weigh the disadvantage of a superior cartridge. So I was making this decision this week, actually, and I decided to bring both and decide later.
Yes.
But yeah, that's the decision. Like if I shoot a 6 arc or a 5.56 for a 3-gun match, is there a reload that someone's gonna be able to get a time advantage on me, or be a high round count stage of some kind? And then you probably can't argue that 6 arc or other cartridges are superior as long range, like their external ballistics, but is it enough to matter on the scorecard? Like, is it enough that I don't have to hold off the target? If I hold center of the target, like if I don't hold wind, if I hold center of the target and press, is it still going to hit? With a 5.56, maybe if you have to hold a half target into space, where on a 6 arc you wouldn't have to, that might be an advantage. And then how do you weigh that ballistic advantage against 2 stages from now, tomorrow, dude's going to have a 60-round drum and I have 30-round sticks, and I have to carry them all, and I have to load them, and I have to not fumble them when I load them, So there's no, kind of what I'm hearing when Alexander's explaining all this is I don't know that there's one application for a rifle anymore like there was. If we just think like olden-timey times, like World War II, or everybody had M1 Garands.
Did they though?
I
mean,
right?
like we start talking about carbines and submachine guns, and
And so contemporary, like, does every branch of the service and every unit within the branch of a service have the same application for a rifle, because we're talking about Marine Corps is doing one thing with 5.56, Army's doing another with 6.8, SOCOM, they have a completely other job, and they have like a half a dozen rifles that they got cooking, for the various specialized applications. So I don't know that we can arrive at one thing does it all. I don't know if the battle rifle does everything. I don't know if the assault rifle does everything. I think maybe we need all the intermediary steps and kind of the modularity that's evolved out of the AR pattern or an AR family of rifles has led us down all these different paths, because in Vietnam there were no accessories for the M16.
There wasn't other uppers.
Yeah. There wasn't there wasn't stocks, there wasn't grips, there were barely 30-round magazines. Where now it's like, okay, well, everyone's kind of had their time to put their little spin on this thing. And then as it goes in a direction we like, we develop another weapon system. And we kind of even breezed over like the whole SCAR program, like kind of how he's saying that, big army, green army, as they say in the biz, decided one thing with the XM7 program. SOCOM's like, yeah, that's cool. We're not doing that. So like kind of same thing when I think one of the more contemporary explorations of battle rifles was when SOCOM decided mid-GWAT that they wanted a piston-driven gun. They're like, well, we like some of the characteristics of what the AK does. We want to develop something like that, and we want our own gun for our own special purposes, because their firing schedules that they were submitting M4s to basically exceeded the design parameters of it. That's where the SOCOM profile barrel came from, because the barrels that came on M4s weren't designed to be shot as much as SOCOM was shooting. So they're like, you know what, we need our own rifle because we do our own thing. So that led to a development of a specific SOCOM purposed rifle, and then they did a 5.56 and a 7.62 version of it. You might know more about this than I do, but the small frame version of it didn't really get beyond exploration of the program, but they said, hey, we do need to shoot through mud huts instead of drywall, so we do need a heavy platform. Here's one that's ready to go. We'll field this. And then I think a big part of the evolution of the XM7 program has been an evolution of positive experiences that they had with
and
the
negative
SCAR Heavy
and negative experiences. So totally agree. Like the arms room concept of SOCOM, right? Like if we get to choose that, especially as citizens, right? Like that's a thing, right? You have specialized rifles for specialized roles, right? Because like there are disadvantages of 20-round mags, 25-round mags, weight being a big thing. Like if you need to walk, a long way, this is still a lot to carry, even though it's less than, something like maybe an EBR, chassis. It's still, there's just a lot to it. And
I'd rather just carry another guy that has my other gun.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing.
EBR.
Like it multiplies too. When you talk about like extra weight per operator.
Yes.
And operators travel in groups. Those groups go onto vehicles. So now we're talking about how much weight do we have in per guy, and then we need all these guys, and all these guys got to get on a helicopter. All right, now the lift capacity of that helicopter has to increase.
Right. Yep. Which
And
impacts
then,
flight time and like how long it can stay on
much
target.
fuel
all
they
that
need.
weight.
like-
That's why they go with the.
How many fit on a
That's why
pallet?
that's
Yep.
why they don't go
You
with
know?
the Tacoma
Exactly.
at Ryan Muckenherd.
Yeah. I mean, it's all together, and it's easy for us to say, hey, just lift more for a heavier rifle, right? But
Go to Cabela's and pick up a 500-round ammo can. Like,
yeah,
that's a combat loadout. All right, carry that.
it matters. And is your combat loadout defined by the number of rounds, or is it defined by weight, right? Because you either have, again, a lot more weight for the same number of rounds, or, you have a, like it's just, there's your trade-off, weight versus number of rounds. So yeah, the SCAR is an amazingly interesting platform. I think part of the reason why the SCAR 5.56 it didn't take off is, one, you had some good HK platforms.
You had some good HK going on.
You had some good HK platforms that gave you more AR controls, didn't have reciprocating charging handles. There was also a
HK,
5.56 conversion to the SCAR Heavy that also never really took off. But there was some logic of, well, if you want a 5.56 SCAR, you could do a conversion to the 17, and then we don't need to field an entirely new rifle, and there's some shared parts and things like that. And the SCAR is honestly an amazing rifle for what it is. It's more accurate than you would expect, especially with the barrel profile. It's amazingly lightweight, and while it has its issues, its buttstock is known to break, and it's not the world's greatest suppressor host. The thing just runs. We did early testing.
A lot to be said for that.
And we did some early testing on we did all of our testing on SCARs before, or 308 platforms before 6.8 ended up being adopted, and we've since moved over to that now that that's a sustainable test. And we started off with 7.62 ARs, and not all 7.62 ARs are made the same.
No,
right? Like it was incredible. We weren't able to go through a magazine on several guns without having a malfunction. So it's unfortunately one of those situations too where there's a real cost element to this, because the guns that we brought in today are not inexpensive, but their 5.56 counterparts save you thousands of dollars, and that's on a commercial level, let alone on a military level. That all adds up. Yeah. But so we were shooting on 308s, and we had a hard time getting guns to run, which is part of the reason why you see the guns here are all high end guns that we have in the inventory for testing, because they're proven military rifles, and they do run, and we need them to work. When we switched over to the SCAR has its detractors, has its issues, and one of those things is the fact that it is exceptionally hard on optics. It has a recoil impulse in I believe it's the vertical direction that you don't see with other platforms, and so it beats optics up. And so it's a great test platform, but for actual fielding with things, like you're going to go through optics more. Like you need a full program. Like the XM157 to be able to have ruggedized SCAR ruggedized parts, and this rifle is incredible. We have ones with like 40,000 rounds on them. I mean, they're keyholing, but they still go bang. And by the time we were done with testing, we're breaking SCARs, which feels good.
They're keyhole giving you that explosive performance on target.
Yeah,
it's a feature.
It's a feature, and it's incredible that
tomahawk.
It's as reliable as it is for the weight. I mean, if you pick this rifle up, it's
always shocking when you pick up a SCAR.
It is shocking for its weight. The downside is that the guy who had to put tens of thousands of rounds proving out the XM157 on the SCAR absolutely despises the SCAR 17. We have over 100,000 rounds. As part of XM157 development.
Is he okay?
On SCAR.
Do we still have him? Is he still with us?
It's hard. He was a Marine coming into this, so hard to tell.
He was never really okay to begin with.
Yeah, he was never really okay.
Okay, got it.
If you've never done live fire endurance testing, like if you're not in the industry, it sounds like a lot more fun. Than
it's terrible.
People are like, dude, you get to shoot all the time. Sounds good.
I did one test. I had to shoot recently. I had to shoot 5,000 rounds. No, 10,000 rounds in 2 8-hour days by myself. And I had my hands full to do it. Like, it was load mags, shoot mags, load mags, shoot mags, had a leaf blower cooling the gun off so it wouldn't melt. Like, it's...
What was the cartridge?
5.56.
Okay, well, at least that's good.
Yeah. Can you imagine if that was high pressure? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I did that same thing with 308, and it's brutal, especially at an indoor range.
Yeah, it's a project. You're on a quest at that point.
So, it's the SCAR is a very compelling platform. If you're a modern, if you're looking for a modern battle rifle, have there been some improvements? Absolutely, right. If you look at some of the military solicitations that FN has done, they've moved away from some of the things that people really, really despise. Like they have non-reciprocating charging handle options now. They've got extended handguards.
Yeah, like for the lay person who looks at the SCAR and they look at the XM7, they say, "Oh, it's a SIG SCAR." Like, what would you say to like the top 3 things that we learned from SCAR that had to evolve into the XM7?
I would say first thing would be reciprocating charging handle. It's there are people who are fans of the reciprocating charging handle, and I do have to say there's something.
So like,
And it was kind of specified in that program.
It was specified.
They wanted
so,
that from the AK.
Yep.
they just needed an additional visual reference that the gun was indeed shooting.
Well, they wanted to get away from. They needed the forward assist. They wanted to get away
we're
from
gonna
that
hit on that.
whole.
Yeah.
That whole. We're just gonna crack that can open and set it on the table, But
There's
so
some-
like we want a reciprocating charging handle.
Yeah, and so it was a SOCOM requirement, and then SOCOM decided that they hate it. And there's something satisfying about like when you pull a charging handle back, like you're manipulating you're connected to the bolt, versus like a T handle on an AR style. Like there's something to like actually manipulating that and being able to clear malfunctions, and just your forward assist is that.
Sure.
It's kind of nice.
When that thing's moving, it's angry.
Yes, it is. So I would say
Doesn't want to be your friend.
I would say that would be one of the things. The buttstock is definitely a point that would need to be addressed. We have a plastic end plate and plastic teeth here. It's not an uncommon thing for the teeth to shear, and then your buttstock no longer locks open. So it's definitely a negative of the platform.
Do they make a non-folding one so you can
They
just
do.
get done with
There
it?
are several.
I'm sure people
For
make like a pick rail adapter or something.
Yeah, for the SCAR owner, they should be aware that this end plate is plastic. And when you have the bolt carrier bottom out against this end plate, there's some give with a plastic end plate. Were you to replace this with aluminum, you may not have you may be damaging internal components as you have the bolt carrier bottoming out. So there are options for it. Just be aware that sometimes when factories design things, they're designed that way for a reason. So just
and you're
be
like,
aware.
I can't believe they didn't make this
Yeah.
metal.
Well, it's kind of like the
idiots."
throw levers, the switch view throw levers, and people are like, "Oh, well, that breaks." And I was like, "Yeah, it breaks on the outside because the next thing that breaks, if we make that impervious to destruction, the next thing that breaks is inside, and then you have to send your scope to us."
I would say the last thing that we learned. There's lots of lessons learned. We kind of learned magazine compatibility. This was really before PMags, and so this is a hard thing when we're talking military. Guns, because these three rifles all take different magazines. So the HK unfortunately takes a specific HK mag that is translucent, which is cool, but it's extra wide, and so it doesn't fit in all magazine pouches. And then we have a steel mag for the SCAR, steel 20 rounder, and then we have various SR25 options for things like the MRGG and obviously the M110 and the SR25 itself. But one of the last things that's a negative of the SCAR is that it doesn't suppress well. You do have a selector switch. It was designed for a flow-through can, so now that we have more flow-through options, it's better. But you can run into some warranty issues with suppressing the SCAR, and if you don't tune the system properly, which you can, you need to replace some pins up here in the gas piston area. You can bend some of the screws at the back of the receiver, and so the gun is, eating itself if you don't tune it properly. But it's a very cool platform, and as long as you have SCAR rated equipment, there are specific PECs that are SCAR rated, specific optics that are SCAR rated. I think there's a specific EOTech too, potentially, that's SCAR rated. But this thing it's lightweight to carry, and it's got a lot of capability, but it will beat you and your equipment up. So just be aware of those things. So, but very, very compelling platform.
Spoken like a guy part of a program that's put many tens of thousands of rounds through SCARs.
Yeah. Yep. Sure have.
There's probably one eating ammo right now down at the range.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these things have they've seen better days. But it's a very interesting platform. I think we have largely moved away from this. I mean, this is not something that Army's supporting anymore, especially with XM7.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it is, if you want lightweight and you want reliability, it is hard to argue a SCAR.
Yeah. Down at the range, when you're in a building and the HVAC system turns off for a little bit, and you never noticed it, but then everyone's like, whoa, it's really quiet in here. That's the feeling that you would get when they stopped testing on the SCAR.
One of my favorite.
I just got really used to that.
One of my favorite anecdotes. I was talking to someone who was with FN, And the SCAR has evolved from that version that was part of the program. And one of the things he said is, we're really tired of optics companies using our gun to break stuff. We're tired of being the standard of destruction.
just the optics sickle of death.
It's rough.
What about we got anything else on behind you there? That's honorable mentions.
We've got 2 more things here. Trying to get them as close as possible. So bringing in rifles from the same company, and we can pull cans off. But just commenting on the difference between
we never pull cans off. Sir.
No.
Commenting on the difference between a 5.56 and a 308. And there's some substantial weight differences here. It's a great option for seeing receiver size difference. And it's part of the reason why guys are going to have a hard time moving away from anything 5.56, because 5.56 still is capable. I can still get guys to reach out to 800 to 1,000 meters with a 5.56, and it's in a platform that is substantially more maneuverable. Even though this here, so both of these are Knights rifles, different stocks on there because I'm a sucker for the UBR on large frame rifles, but I kept the light on here, pulled off optics just to keep them try to be similar. We've got larger suppressors on these. It's just you have more powder, so to get kind of the same equal result, you need a larger can. Maybe not quite a fair comparison with this one being a shorty can, but going much shorter on this on a 308 package it gets rowdy. It gets rowdy really, really fast. So
try the side by
absolutely
side here.
Yep. So
and there's different statures of people too. Like early in the battle rifle conversation, we kind of keep jumping around on the timeline. But in Vietnam, that's one of the things they learned is because they were our ally partner, we were selling them our old stuff. So they were giving, small stature Asian people M1 Garands, and like they physically couldn't hold them up properly. So that's some of the other things people have to think about is like stature of people, and then also. By and large, you think of like a SOCOM dude, you probably think of somebody like middle-aged that works out a lot. A lot of people in the military, they're late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
They're kind of small people. Like, you can't just load them down with 300 pounds of stuff. 5.56
is incredibly easy, right? Especially if we put a suppressor on it. It's easy. It's forgiving in terms of recoil. It is substantially lighter, and the ability to rack the rifle is very different. I would say that SR25 is tougher to rack than some of the other ones here, but the ability to lock the bolt to the rear on that SR25 versus that SR15, it's night and day difference. If you have a smaller statured shooter, they will 100% struggle with a large frame platform and the ability to simply administratively manipulate the rifle. Actually something I like about this MRGG is it's actually just a touch lighter, so it's a little bit easier to lock back to the rear, just kind of the way that they did their operation system. But if you have a wide group of people who you are expecting to have a rifle fielded to, lighter weight, lighter recoil, and easier to operate are all very compelling things.
Yes.
And especially again when we start talking about weight on the end of a barrel, longer cans, service life. Again, if I got to pick one thing for hunting and long range and close and try to do everything, it's a compromise. But I'm going to end up with probably something like this because I'm a sucker for large frames. There are going to be other people who end up with 5.56 AR as their solution space, and it's a different philosophy, and kind of no one's wrong, but you still have some major advantage of 5.56.
Yep. And not everyone's a primary fighter either. Like that's some of what brought us to M4 in the first place. Is not everybody who maybe needs a gun or needs a rifle is a frontline tip of the spear person. And so like you get into kind of the law enforcement aspect of some people feel that have professional capacity to be around and use these. They feel about rifles the way firemen feel about hoses. Like they are completely dispassionate about it, and they're not really so you. Somewhat needs to be boiled down to a basic level for, if they're using it, it's a defensive purpose, you know?
Yeah.
Similar to back to the 1911 versus Glock thing, it's like not everybody should have a 1911, but there are people who can do pretty amazing stuff with them. Mm-hmm. Same kind of thing here. Like not everybody needs a battle rifle, but man, some people who do can do some pretty amazing things with them.
Absolutely. If you're not having to penetrate body armor, which is a question, right? We haven't seen the body armor proliferation in the Ukrainian conflict, like what was expected. Now, that being said, Russia's not the only near peer. They're definitely not the only near peer threat. But that conflict is being fought with 5.56, 5.45, 7.62 by 39, right? Of course, there's 7.62 NATO guns. There's probably Creeds and stuff like that have floated over there. But it's a very interesting conflict. And if you're not needing to defeat body armor, and you're not needing to reach out to, extended ranges, or you're not regularly reaching out to extended ranges, this probably isn't a great solution, right?
I mean, it seems to me like oftentimes we are looking for that solution, that one thing to do it all, to standardize. And this is the one thing, I can hand it to you. You get one of these, you get one of these, you get one of these. It's all the same thing. And you might even have a different job, right?
That's great in Congress.
Well, there's a lot of overlap between these two, right? Like, I can take this out to distance, and I can do CQB with this.
Right.
Right? So, but if I'm going to be primarily closer than this, especially if I can have something that gives me the ability to reach out to distance very easily with this, or much easier than I would with a standard optic, it makes a 5.56 very, very compelling. But if I'm more regularly going to be engaging longer distances, or I'm more regularly going to be engaging threats with body armor, then maybe upsizing to the 308 makes more sense. But there's overlap. Like, I like both of these platforms because they can do everything. They're just less optimized for it. As we start talking about intermediate between the two, the space becomes even more of an overlap. But if you can give yourself the capability to do both, just which one do you expect to do more? And that's why me as a civilian, liking this, because I like shooting long range, so I'm biased towards shooting long range. And for a hunting rifle, I'd rather have a 6.5 Creedmoor as a hunting rifle than as a 5.56.
Right.
So that's where I get to be biased towards this, right? But if I'm put in a situation where I'm going to be engaging targets closer with an occasional distance shot, then I'm going to take fire control. I'm going to pop it on 5.56, and I'm going to have a very capable weapon system that I can still reach out to 700-800 meters. 1,000 meters if I need to, especially with a good 77 grain bullet. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I think, and I bet you didn't think I was going to be able to do this, Jim, but I think of this, or I can contrast it or compare it to, or draw similars to hunting.
All things
my
come back to
needs,
hunting.
my needs for hunting deer in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
are different than my needs for hunting deer
Absolutely.
in Arizona.
Yep.
Like, we have bigger deer in Wisconsin. We have bigger deer, closer shot distances.
Sure.
Right. So I might select firearm A for that situation. Arizona, let's say I'm hunting Coues deer. I've only hunted them twice, but I shot one at 400 and one at 525. So a little bit on the upper end of the spectrum of shot distances. I'm sure you could get a longer shot than that too. Yeah. Small target, small stature deer, precision. Don't need a ton of oomph, but I need long range precision. Right. That said, I shot one with 300 short meg, and I shot one with a 6XC. So
again, there's overlap,
and both worked.
So, if I may, I want to offer one more perspective too, because we're looking at this as Americans, as Western forces. I think it's interesting to look at it from the other side as well. Mm-hmm. And if we look at some of the stuff that's coming out of Russia, right? Cold War, there was back and forth, right? We saw the success of AK-47 and looking at switching to M16, right? They saw the success of M16 and switched from 7.62 to 5.45. If we look at what the Russians are doing right now, there's two things that they're kind of looking at doing at least publicly, right, for like the up and coming weapon platforms. And it's interesting because it is the near peer, and they are currently involved in the Ukrainian conflict, and they would were they to get into hot war directly with the United States, they know that they're going to be encountering level 4 body armor versus speculation. And they're looking at an intermediate 6.5 Grendel 6 arc style cartridge and fire controls. And those are the two things that they're developing, because that's how they see the world going. High pressure, high BC bullets with an optic that is a something that can do close quarter battle, but then you're not overmatched if you're, getting return fire from, distances that you normally wouldn't engage at. So, I think it's interesting to look at both sides of a conflict because there's lessons learned from both, right? It's another interesting perspective of where I think some of this is going. Now, full disclosure too, we never really saw a battle rifle developed from the Soviet Union. We had some, what we would almost consider SDMRs, and they considered sniper rifles and things like that. But they really focused on 7.62 by 39 and 5.45 later on. So it might not be the most valid comparison, and there's lots of philosophical.
Referencing the Dragunov, right?
Yeah, retro.
Yeah. So that's a good example because we look at that as a sniper rifle, but the doctrine that they feel the Dragunov would be probably more similar to that.
Bingo.
The mini SAS.
Yeah.
Whereas we, up until very recently, our concept of a sniper was a bolt action Remington 700 and a fixed 10 power scope.
Yeah.
So it's not an equal comparison, but I do think it's interesting that, both, countries who are both on, potentially opposite sides of a conflict are looking at what the up and coming is. And the up and coming is fire control and intermediate high BC cartridges that are more than 5.56 and 5.45, and maybe less than the 7.62s of old.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where my mind goes personally.
Yeah.
And like I was bringing up a couple things. Number one, we try to find this do-all solution, right? Yeah. But different jobs require different tools.
Absolutely.
It's like you don't go to a golf course with just one club.
Is that what I was doing wrong?
Yeah, you can.
You can, and heck, you can probably complete the course too.
Drivers for sure.
Yes. Solely drivers.
But I do wonder though, over time, in this discussion, I feel like the discrepancy between what we would consider a battle rifle, and an assault rifle is getting smaller, and I don't know, man. I just can't stop thinking about these high pressure cartridges or cases, I guess, whatever you want to call it, cartridge case with all the things. Does that further shorten that gap to where you have all these converging technologies and now you do have the best of both worlds? Or what does high pressure do to a 5.56? Does that become the new battle rifle? Because
that's the thing.
Yep,
it's out there.
That is the thing. Yep, there are companies working on it. There are companies working on high pressure 5.56. So because why not, right? It's already NATO. Everybody's got rifles for it. So if you can have rifles that maybe you need an upper swap, maybe not, right? If it can take the high pressure. Very, very compelling.
If it can take the high pressure. And then, cost, economics come into play here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is it going to do everything as a battle rifle, as a 6.5 Creed or a 308 is going to do? No. Right. Is it going to do most of what that person needs to do? Right. But then also be maybe a little bit lighter weight, a little bit more compact, a little bit more, wheelie, whatever. I don't know. It's all give and take. I mean, we know that, right? Yep. And I've found myself in situations hunting where I wish I would have brought this one, but I didn't because I brought this one for XYZ.
Right. And you probably have a favorite, general purpose hunting rifle.
Absolutely.
Right. And is it biased towards a longer range or is it biased towards a shorter range?
Totally long range. Yeah.
So your default hunting rifle, right, is similar here, but it's probably longer and heavier and, than some of your other rifles that
a little more mag than he needs.
Yeah. A little more mag, But
it's actually, it's not, I wouldn't say it's longer and heavier. It's actually, it's...
How long is that barrel, Mark?
It's 22. So we're talking about, I customized...
It's over 20.
I'm out.
That's true. However, it's it also is a 300 short mag with LHT 3-15 on it and rings, everything. It weighs 7.5 pounds.
I'm shocked you went with 3-15.
I always say this. You think I choose more magnification?
Because you do.
No, I don't. The 3-15, 3-18 we're talking about the vast majority of things you're going to do, will handle the situation. I've been on that. You just don't listen.
You're just a
I
product of
always
your
listen to
raising,
you.
Mark. Because, like, I mean,
I
my
always listen.
hunting raising was mostly in the north woods of Minnesota. So, like, normal is an 18-inch 742 and 30-06.
Now, I don't know if you know this. Mark's from Washington.
Yeah.
I think of you as Nebraska Mark. Like, you'll always be Nebraska Mark to me.
That's fair.
There's three
Marks.
There's 3 and they're all very different people.
That they are.
But you go into, like, again, landscapes where, like, oh, well, this, maybe this conflict required this type of rifle, this conflict required this type of rifle. But, like, again, I'll bring it back to hunting. You could be hunting blacktails in western Washington, Jim, and you might shoot a deer in the timber at 20 yards, or you might get one in the clear cut at 600 yards, 700 yards. What rifle are you going to bring?
Right. Which one are you more likely to encounter? Are you okay passing on that long distance shot?
Absolutely not.
No, he's not.
But you can get for that, it's actually less the cartridge and, to me, more the optic that you select, because you need to be able to maximize that low end quick target acquisition, but also be able to crank it up enough that you can engage that long range shot, which 15 power is incredibly sufficient.
Way to bring it back, though, because here's the deal. Without a super sick optic, it's all just another new gun.
True that.
It is, and I've done enough trainings now. It's fascinating because if you want to reach out to distance, you need a rangefinder, right? I've seen
Yeah.
Or JDAM.
I've seen
Or that.
I've seen or just completely something else. But it's amazing how bad we are at range estimation, right? And that's a critical thing. All of these weapons have drop. I've seen high performance weapon systems and guys shooting at regular qual distances, missing targets because they underestimated the trajectory of their bullet with the latest and greatest.
Gravity is a thing.
Gravity is a thing. So no matter what cartridge you choose, gravity is a thing. You need to compensate for it, even at distances closer than you realize, right? And I've seen guys. I was on the line with a group of trained users, and they were ranging using reticles with targets that perfectly aligned with their reticles. And the instructor went to the entire group and said, "How far away is that target?" I was like, 500 meters. Yeah, 500 meters. Right. Everybody's looking through optics with ranging reticles. 500 meters. 500 meters. Okay, cool. That target's 300 meters away. All right. So everybody likely missed because they got the range wrong. All right. Next target, SLU. Again, perfectly flat field. A target that perfectly matched their reticle, not moving. Right. Not camouflaged.
Not even alive.
Not even alive. Perfect conditions. Right. What's the next target?
Not being shot at.
This one's 500 meters. That's 500 meters. Yeah, 500 meters. Nope. That target is 700 meters. So 500 meter targets were between 300 and 700 meters.
So they just guessed 500 meters until they were right?
Yeah.
It's always a
Is that
good
the goal?
guess.
Yeah, it's always a good guess, except for the fact that your ballistics are
Yeah.
not correct for 500 meters for 300 or 700.
It's a bold strategy.
500 is like guessing C on the multiple choice.
Yes. Yep.
Because you're like, okay, I'm acknowledging that it's further away than point blank, than just like hold dead on.
Yep.
I don't know how far away it is, so I don't want to say something that sounds stupid, like I've never seen a far away target before, like 700, 800, 900, whatever. So I'm just going to say it. Medium, 500.
Yeah, medium.
But they had a measurement. Like they had a measurement tool that was like gauged
Right.
to that target even, and it's
That is funny.
So it goes to the even if you're going with the smaller platform, if you want the ability to engage out to distance, right, to not have overmatch used against you, you need a rangefinder. Like it's just, and that is why everyone is looking at fire controls, right? Like we can choose whatever cartridge we like, and any of the three here on the table. Some of the intermediate stuff that's coming, exciting. Like again, the 6-arc, that new FN. I'm really excited about fall between these two. I think they're going to be really capable weapon systems, really lightweight, and so with some high pressure technology in them, with like all steel cases. Man, those are things to look at. Or even if I'm just shooting a 5.56, right? can and have taken targets at 1,000 with things, but I need to know the distance. I need good optics for it, and it's just it's going to be the evolution. No matter what cartridge you choose, the thing that's going to be pushing it to next gen is going to be optics.
Well, and we've talked about it before many times, not just because we work for an optics company, but the advent of the rangefinder is what unlocked long range.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
But also, and I actually, I'd say oftentimes, not always, but prefer a handheld rangefinder.
Sure.
Even though you could consider it an extra piece of kit compared to a rangefinder binocular. Like I said, not always, because there's certain situations where I do want that rangefinder binocular. But you have a secondary piece of kit. Yep. You're transitioning between two things. You're losing time. Time is of the essence, certainly when you're hunting sometimes. And I've missed a couple opportunities because I was, confirming range.
And they're not shooting back.
And they're not shooting back. But then you look at something like the XM157 with it integrated, one piece of kit. It's there.
As soon as you find the target, you can get a range on it. You don't have to find it 3 times. Find it the first time through your scope. Find it the second time through your rangefinder. Find it the third time through your scope. I mean, it's just
and you also have 8x magnification and a reticle and a stable support system. I would say in many scenarios to make sure you are ranging. The range that you're getting is what you want.
Yep.
Yeah. The fact is, for me, like, the optic really is the next gen thing. You kind of said that. It's the next gen thing. The gun. I mean, the thing is, like, there's new guns that are coming out with it, and like, they're still just guns. Like, we know them. They still sling a metal projectile downrange. Yeah, they do a little differently. They incorporate features that people have hand selected and curated from other platforms. But, like, until we start shooting laser beams, the way that we're improving things and we're adding capability and functionality is with the optic.
Now, I'll say that said, though. Now, to my knowledge,
I didn't
Alexander,
ask for a devil's advocate.
It's not an advocate. It's an addendum.
Finite statement.
Something. I'm not.
All right.
Would you just wait?
I wrote the Constitution, and now you're just amending it.
No. So, we're talking about the modern battle rifle, with and including the XM157 in that conversation. Right now, to your average user,
right,
that is an option. Not necessarily because there's technology that they aren't allowed to have. It's just we're not.
Yeah, we're focused on our, on the big contracts that we have, and we have to focus on the government customer first. Like, we're legally obligated to do so.
Right.
So what's the interim solution?
Yeah, for the person that says, I want a battle rifle.
Sure.
I want that kind of capability. What does maybe that cartridge selection look like, the platform, and then also the optic that you think most complements a battle rifle?
Once again, biased towards longer ranges, which is why you like this. I've shot the same competitions I have with fire control as I have with a 1 to 10. And what the 1 to 10 razor's an awesome option. Having first focal plane and a Christmas tree reticle, to me, it really helps take advantage of it. That being said, the 1 to 6 too is an incredible optic, especially for the value that it provides. You can get a BDC reticle in there, which learn your gun, learn your holds. What are you guys? I mean, I'm sure 3-gun is just.
Yeah, I'm probably just this side of the opposite of that. I tend to like. Alexander tends to be large frame. I tend to be small frame, so I probably would land on the 6 arc side of the house. Like, I tend not to get interested in new calibers. I was like 5.56 and 7.62. Like, I don't care about the rest of it. 6 arc kind of unlocked some interesting things that a small frame rifle can do, because what I had to give up to go to a large frame, I wasn't willing to sacrifice. So I could keep all the things I like about the small frame guns and reach out to what I would call an intermediate distance.
Intermediate distance with a bullet, a little bit higher mass.
Yeah, a little bit higher mass, a little bit less drift in the wind, all that stuff. I'm really interested in like some of these, the 6-arc and some of the subsidiaries of it too that maybe aren't even commercially available yet.
Yeah.
And then as they start exploring higher pressure, pushing new calibers or existing calibers at higher pressures, what can projectiles do then?
Yeah.
I think that's probably.
Are you going with an LPVO as well of some sort?
Yeah, because this is the closest I've been to a next gen in 3 years, so I stick to the LPVO.
That's what I have to call Alexander and make him do a podcast just so I can see it again.
Just so I could touch it. Yeah.
Get it on the table here.
Are these even real ones?
Oh
or
yeah,
are these just inert.
They're real ones. They're real ones.
Like the old tanks, we just poured a bunch of cement down the dejective lens.
I did mean to bring this up earlier,
Yeah.
and maybe it goes without saying, but in contrasting a battle rifle with an assault rifle, cost of operation.
Yeah. I mean, so we hit on it a little bit earlier with everything is more expensive with a battle rifle.
Yeah.
Ammunition is more expensive. You're going to be spending more on magazines, and they're heavier magazines. The entire weapon itself is much more expensive. And for the individual who's, on a budget and looking for it at home, I unfortunately get the same way about large frame rifles as I do about 1911s, where it's like, hey, if you want to play this game, I'm going to recommend you spend some money, right? Because you're not going to get what you want out of it if you go on this on the cheap. Now, that does not mean that if you come to me and you're like, hey, I want a rifle, then I'm going to say, hey, you need to spend a lot of money. Like, I'm going to recommend a different handgun other than a 1911. Glocks, M&Ps, HKs, Walthers, all options that I recommend instead of a 1911 that are going to give you great performance. Same thing on, a large frame AR. You're coming in at a budget, I'm like, hey, do the analysis. Do you really need the large frame AR? Because my recommendation is going to come at a lot of money for the large frame AR when you could spend half that and get an amazing, 5.56 223. And so it's just my threshold for what I would personally recommend to someone, it increases when it comes to 1911s and when it comes to 2011s, same category, and large frame ARs. It's difficult. Knights used to comment that, hey, they were the only one that's TDP, for large frame ARs.
What's TDP?
Technical data package. So they were there was one spec, there was one mil spec for, large frame ARs, right? That's not really the case anymore because we've got the Knights series rifles, and now we have the SDMR, which is a completely different package, piston, and even different magazine. And then we've got the Geisley for MRGGS, and then we've got, if MRGGA ends up going LMT versus Geisley, that's another package in there. So now there are some compatibilities between these rifles, but there are other ones that are not. So the ability to go and build your own, like it's not the same way. I tend to be advocating for people buying large frames, and if you are deciding to build, try to keep them within one company as much as possible, because there's just a cost to it all, and even the auxiliary stuff. These are two examples of pouches that can take either 308 and 5.56 mags, and you know what? They're heavier than regular 5.56 pouches, and they're more expensive than regular 5.56 pouches, and everything just adds up. So, are you going to be swapping out the pouches on your kit every time you want to switch it back and forth between a large frame and a small frame? Or are you buying, a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier mag pouches to put on your kit so you can switch back and forth seamlessly between the two? And so it's just, it's a lot more expensive. And on the military side, talking about battle rifles, we're standing up entirely new factories to produce 6.8 capability with a completely new case design, right? We have a huge stockpile of 7.62 inventory. And then, how do you transition over to that? As you have, more and more troops being fielded with 6.8, you have a large logistical burden to be ensuring that they have sufficient ammunition to produce that as well. So there really, truly were 3 programs with this. Yeah, you had a weapon program, you had a fire control program, and then the ammunition. Well, associated with the weapon, that is not a small lift in all of this as well, especially when you're talking different ammunition types for reduced range and special rounds. And, it's a lot to stand up an entirely new cartridge. So, yeah, I mean, there's a substantial cost impact. And unfortunately, it's not just, AR, but big. To me, I think there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's not AR, but big. Like, even, I mean, you can go too cheap in ARs too, but like, I feel like for ease of analogy, I think you have to spend twice as much to get the same quality.
I think that's
in
fair.
any, in barrels, in bolt carriers, in whatever it is. Like, it's just, it's big. There's more going on. There's more pressure. It's a smaller operating window, I think, of just even like if we were to compare, pistols to rifles. I mean, reloading pistol cartridges is exponentially easier than rifle cartridges. There's so many less variables. The cases are so simple. The pressure is so low. Like you almost can't get it wrong unless you go really wrong. Whereas this is getting more and more towards you kind of got to get this right for it to work.
Yeah.
That's like just because there's a rifle sitting on a shelf that's chambered in 308 doesn't necessarily mean like it's good to go in terms of like what we're talking about here to be equivalent to some of these systems. So I'm with Alexander too. Like if you're gonna go large frame gas guns, like spend some money on it or just don't,
And ask yourself, do you need that extra range?
Yeah.
Do you need the extra pressure? Like, can you do something with 5.56? Are you willing to, to kind of take the, jump into the Grendel or the Arc realm on a small frame? Like, ask the questions because it's not an inexpensive investment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like buying a pickup truck, right? Like people are like, well, I would really like the idea of being able to pull a really heavy fifth wheel trailer if I had to. It's like, well, do you have to?
Well, but maybe someday.
Yeah, maybe someday. It's like, well, okay, well, you have to drive this every day. It's like it burns diesel fuel every day.
Find a parking spot.
Yeah, find a parking spot. Buy the tires.
I feel like usually
you got to weigh the what ifs.
Usually by the time the diesel filters come into play, they're like, oh.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, there are people who have that application, but it's like, okay, do you need a 1 ton, or are you more half ton guy? Well, half ton's not. Maybe you're a 3/4 ton guy. Like it's kind of one of those things.
Or maybe you're Ryan Muckenhern and you're a Tacoma guy.
Yeah, that's like the P7 of the whole thing, really.
Well, then you could end up in a spot where yes, you have gained quotation mark increased capability, right? But actually at the expense of practicality and how you're most commonly going to be using that firearm. You actually have a package that you probably like. You might like less.
Yeah, which means your capability sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
All the guns on the. I don't mean to keep this going, but then I keep looking at my sheet where I had a few bullet points here and that I wanted to bring up. So suppression. Like, is there a difference there between assault rifle and a battle rifle? Like, is it harder? Pretty big can on this one, longer can on this one.
It really
versus
comes down
this
to
one.
the customer.
That one's got a thing on the thing.
Because
sometimes they're. What is this? What is this thing?
Sometimes they're really going for the actual sound.
There's a can inside of it.
Sometimes they're just reducing the signature. Like the stuff that was based on the KS1 contract for the British, they were more concerned with suppressors in terms of like actually just flash signature and blast signature more so than like being quiet.
Okay.
Whereas in some of these other systems, they're actually trying to be quiet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would that entity, like that agency or that government partner, what would they accept in terms of service life for that capability, Because the suppressor that Jim has there has significantly different service life than the one that's on the HK or vice versa. It's what capacity do they want? How long do they expect it to have that capacity, and what are they willing to pay for it?
Okay.
And ultimately, I mean, we're talking 30 cal versus 5.56 for suppressors. There's a lot of powder difference there, right? So for similar performance, you're going to end up with bigger cans. So like that's why I brought the big can on the SR25 and the small can on that. You can get away with small can. Small can does something on that, but they don't make a can that's the size of that 5.56 for the current generation, cans for Knights for 30 cal.
Right.
Not for 7.62 guns, anyways. So
you mentioned we've used a lot of acronyms today, and I feel one that you said the semi-automatic sniper system.
Yeah.
And this is more just a question. I feel like probably maybe like 2009, 10ish, maybe like the SAS rifle.
Yeah.
Like I was hearing a lot about that, and then I don't hear SAS rifle as much anymore. Is that, or am I just not hearing it? Is it still very much a thing? Is battle rifle the new term for a SAS rifle?
No, I wouldn't say that's.
No, I wouldn't say that. Still a thing, still fielded. Being on the fire control program, we haven't done like a lot of hands-on with M110 just because, you know, it has its own optic suite, even though this is a great option for it. The part of the issue with the M110 series of rifles is actually associated with that SDMR right there. So when SDMR was put up as a program, there was actually 2 entries for it. There was one for SDMR and there was one for compact semi-automatic sniper system. And HK ended up fielding nearly the exact same rifle. There was a difference in the optics that they put on it. With the compact semi-automatic sniper system being a 4-20 optic, I believe, versus a 1-6 that ended up being selected for the SDMR. I believe there's a difference in buttstock, and at the time, I think that there was a difference in twist rate because the SDMR was supposed to feed M80A1, a 130 grain 308, versus a M118LR of 175 grain Sierra. So they'd spec'd the twist rates differently. That was at least my understanding of the situation. And I believe that got awarded, but then the stories that I've heard is that it's HK in Germany who backed off the CSAS and said we don't actually want to hold that requirement for what they produce. So SDMR went forward, and CSAS, that CSAS program didn't go anywhere. And then SOCOM is kind of picking what they want as they want it. So there's M110s, and then there's short SR25s that they're picking up. I wouldn't be surprised if there's MRGGs that get picked up with big optics on them. You had MRGG-S that got picked up as a SOCOM contract. You've got SOCOM running 6-ARC as options. So SOCOM ends up being that arms room concept, and they get to pick what they like, which is it's pretty cool. But big army, just logistically, it's nearly impossible to do that, right? And have any sort of budget. So everything that I've heard still a thing, and you're seeing more and more places switch to semi-auto sniper rifles. But for the time being, the focus has been on SDMRs, and now with 6.8 being the new cartridge, right? We do have higher pressures, we have higher velocities out of the same barrels as 7.62 NATO. So what does that do to the 240? What does that do to the 240 belt-fed machine gun? What does that do to SDMR? That's still a 7.62 gun when everybody else in the squad has 6.8 guns, right? So the entire squad's going to have 6.8s. So what does that do to this platform? What does that do to some to sniper systems, right? M110's still around. The focus has been on the MRAD with its solicitation for the bolt gun side, but you are seeing an increased use of semi-auto guns as well. It's just not on the forefront right now because there hasn't been a big program for one besides MRGG and then that failed CSAS program.
I think the topic itself, too, kind of lives at a crossroads, similar to like when we talk about LPVOs and law enforcement. On one side, you got the sniper side of the house who left to their own devices, they would have a telescope and shoot a ShyTac. Mm-hmm. And then you have to force them to get smaller. It's like, hey, homie, we need you to have more bullets faster. So they're kind of forcing, like the SAS program is kind of like, hey, like both guns don't do everything. Maybe let's develop a gas gun. I think battle rifle is similar to elevating from the assaulter level. It's kind of like, hey guys, we need you to have a little bit more spice under the hood. And so it's like, okay, well, we need a kind of an assaulter type gun that has more power. And so it kind of lives at this intermediate space where how you look at a battle rifle or the optics that go on them or the cartridges that go in them, it kind of depends on your perspective. Sniper guys from their side of the house are going to have an uncompromising, ballistic performance and long range performance and all that stuff. And then guys from the assaulter side of the house tend to be more like I don't really care how it does the thing. I just need to lay the hate on somebody. It totally depends on the perspective. And then in terms of like an organization, like a military or, a unit, all these personalities are involved and everybody gets a vote. And then all this kind of stuff is decided by committee. Like I don't think anybody like brought the 6-8 to the table and said, this is the ultimate idea. It was like, okay, we took that guy's idea. We took that guy's idea. We kind of like mixed them together and this is what we developed. So I think that's kind of,
well, focus group of two, but between both of you guys here today, you have just, commonalities, but like a slightly view of what is going to be optimal for how you are most commonly using it.
I would like to build out this same platform as a semi-auto sniper with a 20-inch barrel and a different can and a different stock and, a 4-20 style optic on there because it offers different capability. And interesting in terms of the military reference to this, the Marine Corps got rid of snipers. Like the sniper MOS is now gone as a standard MOS. They've switched it so they still issue M110s to folks in the squad, and I think that there's like some sort of recon element there or light recon or something like that. It's not Marine Corps recon, the unit, not Marine Corps Force recon or anything like that. Just recon elements within the Marine Corps. But Marine Corps got rid of the sniper program.
Somebody just spit out their drink when they heard that.
Yeah, yeah, that was a couple years ago, and so that's an element of it too. Now, coming back to the optic side, if you have someone who is not trained as a sniper, the need for a fire control, I cannot impress on you enough the advantage that a disturbed reticle with a laser rangefinder provides to you, right? Because if you are not going to send someone through a specialized course and then have that be their life from now on, you need to give that individual every single advantage that you can. So, I think you're going to see fire control insert itself into that role, or maybe the Marine Corps sniper comes back. We'll see. Sniper programs have, died before, and they typically get brought back. So we'll see. But that could be part of why you're not seeing a whole lot of conversation about the M110 right now too.
That's interesting.
Takes a lot of special out of the sniper game.
Yeah. There was a lot of controversy about that one. So.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you look at a piece of tech like this optic, the XM157, and you are elevating the capabilities of the warfighter with probably a lot less training, I would assume, yes?
Yeah.
Well, like elevators in buildings used to have operators, like a live person used to have to run that thing and bring you up and down to different floors. Well, now technology's evolved to the point where the lay person can push the number of the floor they want and it does the thing. Kind of similar here. Like you can push the button and it tells you.
Yeah, I will not tell you that every single person who has this, is a sniper by any means. One of the things that we push with this is there's accusations that the Army's trying to buy their way out of marksmanship, and that's not the case, right? Marksmanship is you still need to be able to properly execute the fundamentals of marksmanship to be able to utilize
100%.
This optic to its capability.
It won't go where you want it to go unless you do your part.
Right.
That's said by people who don't shoot a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And we did the math for you, right? We made it very, very fast, and we did the math for you, right? You still need to do everything
you were going to
else,
have to do anyway.
which you were going to have to do anyways. And again, just because this helps you engage accurately at distance, there's more to sniping than shooting too. And so, not trying to pretend that this replaces them by any means, but if you are going to remove your sniper element and you're going to give a more and you're not going to give a specialized person that sniper rifle, you should be giving them every single advantage that you can, and that advantage truly is fire control.
Yeah, because like in that era of more primitive sniping, I mean, those dudes, it was their life's work. Almost, developing this specialized knowledge. They didn't have good chronographs.
Dope books.
They didn't have good, consistent bullets and all this stuff. Whereas now it's like, essentially,
did they have rangefinders?
I don't know.
Most of them did not.
70s.
Yeah. I mean, fairly new thing there.
Yeah. So essentially, what this did, it didn't replace all that, but it took something like, if the knowledge before is synonymous with like a really thick textbook, condensed all that information down into a note card, or a small pamphlet, And, so like the breadth of knowledge you need to wrap your arms around is just more palatable to a person. Whereas before, when the machine couldn't do the math for you, you kind of had to have a feel for it, which is what made some of those people, some of those legendary long range shooters so special, because they just had a feel for it based on experience. Essentially, technology has figured out a way to boil down that experience and pass it along like already digested to a new user.
Rangefinders, consistent bullets, and accurate ballistic calculators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, you can, like you said, you did the math. You think of just calculators in general, right? Like what you would have had to know to solve a complex equation by hand, or you get the old, I don't know, TI. What number are they on now, Jim? I don't know.
I stopped using them at 85.
Yeah, that was my last TI.
Anyway, but you see where I'm going there. Like, press a few buttons. Well, that's the answer.
Shout out to my 4th grade teacher who said I wouldn't have that at all times.
Shout out to my buddy who downloaded all the games on mine for me.
Cool, guys. Man, did we leave anything on the table?
No, you got anything else on your list?
Battle rifles today. Man, I think we've checked most of the boxes here. Super interesting discussion. Got to talk about where we were, where we are now, a little bit about where we're going.
Some of the friends we made along the way.
Yeah. Exciting times, for sure. Cool stuff.
Are we live?
Are we live? Jim, what do you got?
I love it.
Sensational.
Sensational.
Cheesecake. Sensational.
At nighttime. Mark, you said it. You did it.
Cool.
See, what I don't want to do is amend your Constitution that you just finished writing.
Gosh.
Oh,
It's
dang.
just
Not even 2 times?
No.
never forget, I guess, right? Jeez Louise, Jim. Won't let it go.
It's okay.
See how he
I'm
got
not saying
high,
all. I'm
see
not
how
saying.
he got high
I
pitched
did.
it? It's okay.
I'm not saying all
It's
amendments.
fine.
I'm not saying all amendments are bad.
This is true. This is
We're
true.
so cute
Some
together.
really good ones out there. Guys, thank you so much. Like I said, super interesting discussion. I just always appreciate both of you and your vast knowledge. Cool stuff. The modern battle rifle. I love it. What do you guys think out there in listener land? What's the modern battle rifle to you? Let us know in the comments below. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.